Are you crazy? Don't you know you can't just barge into a military base? Yet, I drove my mini electric car and slammed the pedal straight inside. No one could have guessed that this was the only way for me to get in touch with the military brass. Just a few days ago, I awakened the ability to be forcibly teleported to another world. After a near-death experience, I barely made it back alive from that zombie-infested hellhole. But in just 10 hours, I will be forcibly teleported back to that bloody world once again. All alone, my only option was to seek help from the government. And now, I finally got my wish. Sitting in an interrogation room. On that chair, behind the iron bars, sat Battalion Commander Fang Tianrui. Do you have any idea how serious of a crime it is to trespass into a military zone? I let out a bitter laugh. I know, but right now you're the only ones who can help me. Fang Tianrui frowned. If you're in trouble, go to the police, or go to your local neighborhood committee or the government. What's the meaning of you driving straight into a military base? Right now, we have every reason to suspect that you're a foreign spy. Facing his interrogation, I shook my head with another bitter smile. That's really not it. I suggest you immediately send someone to inspect that tablet. After all, I don't have much time left. What do you mean you don't have much time left? Stop playing the fool. Fang Tianrui let out a disdainful sneer, intending to expose my lies. He had the tech department bring their equipment to the interrogation room. The tech personnel arrived quickly. They took the tablet and dismantled it, but upon seeing its internal structure, they immediately gasped in shock. This wasn't a standard commercial model. It wasn't Intel or AMD. It was likely a custom-made military device. I suggest we immediately have the top experts in the country decrypt this. As soon as the tech soldier finished speaking, Fang Tianrui's expression shifted slightly. Although he still didn't believe my words, he used a satellite phone to contact the security bureau. He requested the security bureau to bring the country's top experts over. Just half an hour later, an unmarked black car entered the base. National Security Bureau, Zhang Zilong and Dr. Yu Jinghui walked in. The moment he stepped into the interrogation room, Dr. Yu's eyes were immediately drawn to the tablet. He couldn't help but pick it up and hold it under the light. After observing it for a moment, he began to take it apart. When he saw the internal structure, he drew in a sharp breath. This motherboard doesn't belong to Blue Planet. It's not from any known series. The CPU isn't silicon-based. It's a carbon-based chip. Hearing this, Zhang Zilong asked in confusion, what does a carbon-based chip mean? It means this is a type of technology that completely surpasses the scientific level of Blue Planet. It's a nano chip with extremely high stability. At the same time, you could also say pausing here, Yu Jinghui stopped for a moment. He looked out the window, speaking in a tone filled with disbelief. It's highly likely the product of an extraterrestrial civilization. Hearing this, Zhang Zilong's eyes widened in shock. Fang Tianrui's expression changed rapidly. This sudden news violently clashed with everything he knew. After snapping out of his daze, he slammed the table and roared at me. Spit it out! Where did you get this tablet? I looked straight into his eyes, which were filled with a mix of anger and shock, and enunciated every word clearly. From another world. A world crawling with zombies. As soon as I finished, I saw Fang Tianrui's pupils shrink instantly. The next second, he slammed the table again. Bullshit. If you dare spout any more nonsense, I'll deal with you under military law. I wasn't afraid in the slightest. I shot back, can Blue Planet manufacture carbon-based computers? Does Blue Planet even have this kind of technology? Besides, I really don't have any time left. I haven't slept in 3 days. The moment I fall asleep, I'll cross over again. And this time, I might never come back. Saying this, my eyes gradually dimmed. It was true. If the military didn't believe me, my next jump would very likely be my last. Standing next to Fang Tianrui, Zhang Zilong had recovered from his shock. Hearing my words, he immediately lowered his voice and asked, "What do you mean? Explain yourself clearly. There's a countdown timer on my retina. When it hits 0, I'll be forcibly teleported to that zombie-infested world. Right now, I have 7 hours and 58 minutes left." After hearing what I said, Zhang Zilong fell into deep thought. Seeing that Zhang Zilong seemed to actually believe me, Fang Tianrui immediately spoke up. "Old Zhang, you don't actually believe him, do you?" But Zhang Zilong was lost in thought and ignored him. He picked up the dismantled tablet next to him and asked Yu Jinghui, "Do you think this thing is from Blue Planet?" Yu Jinghui shook his head. his tone carrying a hint of fanaticism. It's not from Blue Planet. It's not that I'm looking down on Blue Planet's technology. But even if you gave us another 50 years, we couldn't build this. Maybe in a few hundred years, if we're lucky. This is definitely alien technology. Hearing this, Zhang Zilong lowered his head. He stayed silent for a moment, then looked at me. I believe you. But you better be worthy of my trust, worthy of the nation's trust. Then, Zhang Zilong picked up his special encrypted phone. Hello, this is the Deputy Director of the National Security Bureau. I have an urgent matter to report. I need to request the immediate deployment of the Chemical Defense Unit. After hanging up, Zhang Zilong looked at me. Now, tell me everything you know. Sitting in the chair and watching this unfold, my tense heart finally relaxed. I told them everything I knew. 2 days ago, a countdown suddenly appeared in front of my eyes. When the countdown hit 0, a blue portal materialized in front of me. It sucked me inside. By the time my vision returned, I was surrounded by a dead city. There were zombies everywhere, just like in the movies. A 12-hour countdown also appeared on the back of my hand. At first, I was actually pretty excited. I thought it was a dream, that none of it was real. But when I took a hard fall, the very real pain etched itself into my mind. That's when I knew it wasn't a dream. I had actually crossed over. I started running for my life in that zombie world. It wasn't until the 12-hour countdown ended that I returned to Blue Planet. I have a gut feeling that if I fall asleep again, it's highly likely I'll cross over once more to that terrifying world. That's why I haven't slept for 3 days straight. I really can't hold on much longer. So I brought the tablet and came to find you guys. I'm hoping the country can help me. As I finished, the room once again fell dead silent. It seemed everyone was digesting this unbelievable information. Finally, Zhang Zilong was the first to snap out of it. He called in 2 chemical defense soldiers to take me away for quarantine and a blood test. However, right at the end, Zhang Zilong asked one last question. How did you get here? I took the bus. When I got to the gate, I went to the Mini-EV dealership across the street, bought one, and drove straight in. As soon as I said that, Zhang Zilong grew so anxious that sweat beaded on his forehead. Do you have any idea, that if you're carrying a virus, that entire bus, the streets, maybe even this whole city could be wiped out? Fortunately, my blood test results came back very quickly. I wasn't infected with any virus. Only then did Zhang Zilong breathe a sigh of relief. But he still didn't let his guard down. He waited until the Chemical Defense Unit arrived and quarantined everyone who had come into contact with me. Engine roaring. Several massive helicopters roared through the sky. The director of the National Security Bureau, Yu Guodong, had arrived as the highest-ranking official. After meeting me, he looked at me with a stern expression. Can you really travel to another world? After getting a firm confirmation from me, he patted my shoulder and asked, how long can the portal stay open? Can we bring heavy weapons through? I calculated the time in my head and replied, it can only stay open for about a minute. After 1 minute, I'll be forcibly sucked inside and the portal will disappear. It's about 2 meters high and 2 meters wide. Heavy weapons probably won't fit. Then, Yu Guodong asked again, what's the situation like on the other side? I told him that zombies were everywhere. So far, I hadn't seen a single survivor. The entire city was drowned in a dead silence. Right now, there were 6 hours left until the next jump. Hearing this, Yu Guodong pondered for a moment. Then he turned and issued an order to Zhang Zilong. Immediately mobilize 3 elite special forces units, Jianlong, Lialong, and Heilong. Also, coordinate with the National Comprehensive Scientific Research Team, environmental analysis experts, medical teams, and technical specialists. Furthermore, the threat of a biochemical leak cannot be taken lightly. Immediately, under the guise of a nationwide nuclear attack drill, activate the Level 1 contingency plan. All top-tier fallout shelters across the country, TNT, are to enter a state of combat readiness, tentatively set for a duration of 1 week. Execute immediately. Half an hour later, the entire country was shaken. Countless TVs broadcasted the news. A nuclear attack drill will commence immediately. Everyone's phones also displayed a red alert. A nuclear attack defense drill will be deployed shortly. Please do not panic. All citizens are requested to cooperate. Countless armored vehicles began rolling out of their bases. Squadrons of fighter jets tore through the sky. Personnel in white lab coats were suiting up in hazmat gear. They arrived at the Nandu base, Hailong, Lilong, and the Zhanlong squad. All 3 teams boarded military vehicles. Armed to the teeth, they rushed to assemble at the base. At the military airfield, Yu Guodong, dressed in his uniform, stood at the front, looking at everyone. Comrades, you are about to undertake an extremely dangerous mission. It concerns the very fate of humanity. If anyone wants to back out, you can do so now. I swear I will absolutely not hold it against you. Those who are ready to carry out the mission, please write your wills right now. The country will ensure they are delivered to your families. The scene instantly fell into a dead silence, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing. They went on missions all the time, but a mission that required writing a will right off the bat was something they had never encountered before. This meant the mission was truly incredibly dangerous. The mortality rate was terrifyingly high. After a brief moment of silence, a soldier took out a pen and paper. Dear Mom and Dad, I am an unfilial son. If I can't come back, please don't grieve for me. I'm just doing what a soldier is supposed to do. After writing, large teardrops fell onto the page. Leaving his name, he solemnly placed the letter into the iron box. Then came the second person, the third, the fourth. One by one, the soldiers dropped their completed wills into the iron box. 7 or 8 minutes later, Yu Guodong solemnly closed the box and handed it to his adjutant. He looked toward the soldiers. His voice was resolute. Comrades, you are all elite soldiers. You are not marching to your deaths. You are marching for the hope of our nation. Just a few days ago, a citizen of our country had accidentally gained control of a space-time portal and the ability to travel to another world. Traveling through a space-time portal? Is this real or fake? This isn't some sci-fi movie, is it? The Special Forces members below couldn't help but feel shocked inwardly. Very quickly, Yu Guodong, standing at the front, continued speaking to the crowd. The other world we are traveling to is a world completely destroyed by zombies. It is extremely dangerous. Moreover, that citizen has already completed his first jump, confirming everything I've just said. However, the transmission mechanism of the virus remains unclear. The specific situation of the other world is still unknown. Therefore, your core mission is to assist him in his next jump, collect data and samples, and most importantly, absolutely guarantee his safety. Is that clear? Sir. Yes, sir. Then, Yu Guodong looked at me. How much time is left on the countdown? 5 hours and 30 minutes. You go get some rest first. Leave the rest to us. Next, Yu Guodong called the squad captains into the briefing room to begin laying out the specific combat plan. At the same time, a booklet titled Survival Guide for a Zombie World was being frantically printed at the printing presses. In just one night, over 90 million copies were printed and distributed directly into the hands of countless citizens. Early the next morning, I was at the military airfield. Surrounding me were Yu Guodong and the 3 elite Special Forces squads. I stared at the countdown timer in front of my eyes. 4, 3, 2, the moment the countdown ended, a burst of blue light radiated before my eyes. About a meter in front of me, it condensed into a portal of light roughly 2 meters high. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at the glowing portal in front of me. Shock was written all over their faces. It was actually real. There really was a portal. The captains of the combat squads were all utterly astounded. Standing next to me, Yu Guodong also stared in wide-eyed disbelief. But just a few seconds later, his expression returned to its iron-willed calmness. He looked toward the squads. Special Forces, prepare to enter research team, follow closely behind. Remember, you must ensure his safety at all costs. After the Special Forces and the others entered, the research team, carrying all sorts of equipment, followed closely behind. Finally, Yu Guodong looked at me. Comrade, have a safe journey. This time, the nation stands behind you. Another world. I'm back. But this time, I'm no longer alone. Behind me stands my entire country. As I stepped inside, the brilliant blue light flashed a few times and quickly retracted the image and the pressure before my eyes. My vision returned. I had appeared in a dead city. Ruined walls and rubble were scattered everywhere. Several long, dried corpses lay exposed on the ground. The head of the research team was near the corpses, taking samples. The Vanguard squad members had already raised their weapons, securing the perimeter. I took a deep breath. It was the exact same spot as last time. It seemed the jump location was fixed. The overall commander of the combat squads, Song Jae, pointed at some fresh corpses in the distance. We just took care of a few zombies. Their weak point is the head. Once the central nervous system is destroyed, the zombie dies. Right. How long is your countdown this time? I looked at the time displayed on my retina and let out a sigh of relief. 24 hours. Hearing this, Songji thought for a moment. Once the research team finishes taking samples, we'll move out immediately. Over 10 minutes later, the research team completed their assessment. A squad member ran up to Songzi and reported, "No survivors in the immediate vicinity for now. A zombie horde to the west is moving south. There are fewer zombies to the east. Recommend heading east." Songzi nodded. "All squads, attention. Zhenlong takes the vanguard. Lai Along covers the rear. Research team in the middle. Hai Along on standby for support. Move out, heading east." Very quickly, the group traveled about 2 kilometers to the east. They encountered quite a few zombies along the way, all of which were swiftly dispatched by the Zhenlong squad, until they passed by a bookstore. Songzi looked into the store. "Search this bookstore. You have 20 minutes." Everyone immediately breached the door and rushed in to search. I picked up a magazine in the messy store. The cover featured some sort of high-tech mechanical device. This world originally had a technological level on par with Blue Planet. In some areas, it might have even been far more advanced. Songji nodded. His subordinates very quickly found a few more electronic devices. The research team immediately brought out their recording equipment and began filming. Then they gathered all the books and documents they could find. The recording and gathering were pretty much done. Songji gave the order over the radio. "Time's up. Everyone, assemble immediately." Just as the research team and the squad members were preparing to pull out. Crack. A faint sound of something snapping echoed from above. Everyone looked up. The wooden sign on the second floor of the bookstore was swaying in the wind. It swung back and forth a few times. Then, with a loud crash, the entire sign plummeted to the ground. The noise echoed throughout the entire area. Zombies in the nearby blocks heard the commotion. They threw their heads back and let out guttural roars, revealing their bloodthirsty, ferocious nature. They sprinted madly toward the bookstore. Songji's pupils shrank. He grabbed his radio and immediately issued an order. "All Special Forces members, prepare for combat." The formation of over 20 people instantly deployed. Their muzzles aimed straight at the bookstore's entrance. The researchers and I were protected in the back, holding our breath as we waited. Just a few heartbeats later, over a dozen rotting zombies appeared at the street corner, charging straight at the bookstore. Their speed was roughly that of a normal person running. A sharp glint flashed in Songzi's eyes. He commanded everyone to attach their suppressors. They took aim at the dozen or so zombies up ahead and opened fire. Pew pew pew! The bullets landed squarely on the zombies. Black fluid splattered everywhere. In just a few seconds, all dozen or so zombies were on the ground. Songji gave an order over the radio. "Deploy silent drones." A few Special Forces soldiers immediately took action, opening their handheld terminals. They deployed several silent reconnaissance drones. The silver reconnaissance drones shot up into the sky. An image appeared on the screen. A bird's-eye view of the street outside the bookstore. Just then, another horde of zombies rushed over, heading toward the bookstore. There were about 30 of them. The recon drones continued their search. Everyone quickly discovered that aside from the 30 or so zombies rushing toward them, the other zombies in the distance had all lost their target. They'd returned to their original positions. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. This is manageable. Just over 30 of them shouldn't be a big problem. The zombies quickly swarmed in. Each bullet landed right between the eyes. In an instant, they were all eliminated. After confirming the area was secure, the research staff quickly collected tissue and blood samples. But one researcher quickly discovered something. The bullet destroyed the brain, and all neural activity completely ceased. But the activity in the zombie's blood is extremely high. The virus inside is still alive. Anyone injected with this blood will turn into a zombie in a short amount of time. Hearing this, Songji immediately gave an order. Aside from the research team, no one is to come into contact with the zombie blood or tissue. If you accidentally touch it, report it immediately. After confirming that all the attracted zombies had been dealt with, the team continued to advance. Stealth drones kept watch from above. I looked at the aerial footage sent back by the drones. Collapsed buildings, dried corpses could be seen everywhere. I lowered my voice and asked Songji, "Do you think there are any survivors left in this world?" Songji looked at the screen, lost in thought for a moment. "Maybe, but if there are any survivors, there certainly aren't many of them." As night fell, the team set up camp in a ruined supermarket. I sat down on the floor, looking out through the window frame. A city with no people, it's so quiet. Songji was sitting next to me, holding his rifle. He was also looking up at the sky outside the window. "Look, the moon here is much bigger than the one on Blue Star. The arrangement and brightness of the surrounding stars are completely different from Blue Star's." I followed his gaze. Unfamiliar stars shone in the dark night. Just then, Song's radio crackled to life. "Captain, I've spotted something's not right outside. You should come take a look." Hearing this, Songzi immediately put on his night vision goggles and looked outside. I put on my goggles and looked out too. About 300 or 400 meters away, twisted figures were shuffling and crowding the street. But compared to the daytime, the zombies were in a much more agitated state. Their reaction speed was also much faster than during the day. A member of the research team came over, holding a blood sample. He walked up beside us. He said quietly, "Based on the change in blood activity, we speculate that the zombies' physical attributes at night will roughly double. Their mental state will also become agitated. Their threat level increases significantly." After hearing this, Songzi's expression turned grave. He had his team members split into 3 groups to take turns on watch. They waited until dawn when the zombies' movements slowed. The team continued to move forward. Soon after, inside a residential building, they discovered a desiccated corpse. There was a bullet hole in its head and on the wall behind it, along with blood spatter. A handgun lay on the ground nearby. The research team confirmed there was no danger and picked up the gun to examine it. Then they found an old diary. It was filled with unfamiliar characters. The research team carefully collected it. The team continued to advance. Before long, they reached a perimeter wall. After everyone climbed over, they were all instantly stunned. In the square ahead were layers upon layers of zombies, thousands of them at least. I instinctively held my breath and glanced at Songzi beside me. Songzi's face was also a little pale. He took out his binoculars to observe. He discovered that among these thousands of zombies, there were a few that were very unusual. Their skin was no longer a deathly white, but a grayish blue. The muscles under their skin were bulging. Even during the day, their movements were extremely agile. Their eyeballs weren't completely bloodshot, and they could perceive movement around them. Songzi lowered his binoculars. He gave a hand signal for the team to advance silently. They reached a parking garage. The countdown timer in my vision showed just over 20 minutes remaining. Songzi immediately decided to use this place as their rendezvous point. He ordered the surrounding soldiers to set up a perimeter. They waited quietly for the time to pass. Soon, the countdown in my vision reached 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. A blue screen of light appeared before my eyes again, coalescing into a blue portal right in front of me. The team members covered their exit. The research team and I stepped into the portal first. Then, Songzi commanded, and the team members entered the other side of the portal one by one. My vision went black for a moment. When I reappeared, I was back on Blue Star. Under the command of Yu Guodong and the others, I was immediately sent into an isolation chamber. The team that had just returned was also sent into separate isolation chambers. Then, they underwent saturation decontamination. After everything was completed, the CDC staff reported to Yu Guodong, "No infection detected. Decontamination is complete." I also stepped out of the isolation chamber, but as soon as I was out, I heard Yu Guodong say with a grim expression to the people around him that something was strange. The level of technology in that world. It couldn't have been wiped out by this virus alone. There must be another reason. Have the decryption experts arrived yet? If they're here, have them start deciphering the books we brought back immediately. After Yu Guodong finished giving his orders, he looked over and asked me how much time was left on the countdown. I looked at the countdown timer before my eyes. I couldn't help but feel a little surprised. The countdown time had changed. The last 2 times, it was 24 hours until the next jump. This time, it had unexpectedly changed to 48 hours. I then told Yu Guodong about this. After hearing this, Yu Guodong thought for a few seconds and said, "This is a good thing. You can get some proper rest, and we can prepare more thoroughly." Then, Yu Guodong returned to the command room. He quickly issued a directive. Phase 1 in the zombie world is complete. No virus leak detected. Immediately cancel the nationwide nuclear defense drill. As the directive was issued, news outlets and social media began to broadcast this news. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers participating in the drill immediately erupted in cheers. They hugged each other one by one, crying with joy. That scared the hell out of me. I really thought a war was about to break out. It's good that we're not fighting. It's good. Once a war starts, there's no telling when it'll end. At the same time, countless linguists from across the country were gathered in the research building, working hard to study the special script. Before long, thanks to the efforts of hundreds of experts, a writing system analogous to a language, from an ancient civilization on Blue Star was discovered. It was revealed to everyone. A document also appeared before me. It described a vast, isolated continent surrounded on all sides by ocean. On that continent, there was only one nation, the Astral Empire. The Astral Empire's class system was incredibly strict. It wasn't uncommon for a family of 3 to starve to death. The Emperor of the Astral Empire ordered the development of a drug that would make people obedient. But they unintentionally created a neurovirus. This virus could make the infected lose their minds, able to function and obey orders without eating or drinking. An Imperial research official wrote in his diary, "We naively thought that we had found the key to controlling humanity. Instead, we created an evil flame that devours souls." The Emperor of the Astral Empire, after learning of our research results, was ecstatic. Loyalty doesn't need reason. In fact, it's better without it. Obedience is the only true reason. He ordered the infected to be converted into power generators. In the dungeons, they fitted them with special masks and gloves. They forced the infected onto generators, making them generate power day and night. Later, the Emperor inspected them and laughed loudly. Even in death, they can still serve the nation. Now, this is what I call loyalty. After that, the Emperor had power plants built all over the country. He chained the mindless infected to spinning wheels, generating electricity around the clock. Eventually, he even turned on the general populace, capturing countless citizens and turning them into the infected, then throwing them into the power plants. By the end, 80% of the entire nation's population had become the infected. The Emperor thought he had secured an eternal energy source, unaware that he had lit the fuse to hell. When the enhanced zombies organized, they turned the power plants into invasion points. The regular army couldn't stand a chance against the infected. The Emperor had used the blood and bones of an entire civilization to nurture a new dominant species. Then I read that the high-level infected learned how to coordinate. They learned how to climb, and when they learned how to think, I knew it was all over. Everything was finished. After reading the document, an indescribable feeling welled up inside me. Such a massive empire, and it collapsed so easily. At noon, Yu Jinghui came to find me. Among the new documents, there was also a map. 200 kilometers to the north, there's a core lithography factory and a fusion energy center. Based on the items and documents you brought back, carbon-based chips, lithography technology, and nuclear fusion capabilities. Their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours. That lithography facility very likely holds the Empire's advanced technical systems. If we can recover even a portion of the data, it could lead to a massive leap forward for Blue Star. Therefore, I suggest you head north next time. After seeing Yu Jinghui off, I received another notice from Yu Guodong. The next transport location has been moved to Lop Nur. The plane to pick me up is already on its way. Before long, I was on the plane. Looking out the window, I thought to myself, how insane. A civilization with such highly developed science and technology, and yet they just had to dive headfirst into biochemical research. The plane landed quickly. I stepped off the plane. A hot gust of wind blew sand and dust straight into my face. A young woman walked up to me. "Hello, I'm Qin Xinyu. I'll be serving as your psychologist." I looked over at Songzi, who had been waiting here for a while. Songzi smiled. He said that I'm currently a person of critical national importance. They're worried I might have experienced some trauma in the other world, which could affect my mental health. This young lady here is the psychologist the nation has specially assigned to you. I was speechless and shook my head. Looking at the countdown timer, there were still 2 hours left. As I entered the base, 15 special-purpose off-road vehicles were lined up neatly before me. Qin Xinyu stood beside me and said, "This time, the higher-ups have equipped you with these multi-purpose all-terrain vehicles. The squad size has also been increased to 40 people. This shows how much the nation values your safety." I touched the vehicle's shell. The material was very thick, sturdier than any car I'd ever seen. The glass was also specialized. Even bullets couldn't leave a single scratch on it. Soon after, once the team had assembled, the countdown timer in my eyes was about to hit 0. The base's broadcasting system also echoed the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 1. A desolate blue light appeared before my eyes once again. Songji gave the order. The special forces drove in first. I glanced at Songji and followed them in. The research team followed closely behind. Before my eyes, it appeared again. I had once again appeared in this place swarming with these zombies. This time was different from the last. As soon as I crossed over, I spawned right at the parking lot where I had left previously. From the driver's seat, Songs used the walkie-talkie to start issuing commands. Dragon Hunter Squad, take the vanguard. Black Dragon Squad, cover the rear. The research team and I will stay in the middle. Battle Dragon Squad, flank both sides. Our marching objective is the Hengliu Fusion Energy Center, 200 kilometers to the north. After confirming everyone had received their orders, the convoy immediately set off. The roaring engines attracted the surrounding zombies. The off-road vehicles in the convoy hit the gas, crushing the zombies blocking the way. The mechanical launchers under the chassis lowered, and drones soared into the sky. They conducted aerial reconnaissance and transmitted real-time data. Once the surrounding terrain and everything else was sorted out, Songji took his eyes off the surveillance screen and turned to ask me how long the countdown was this time. I glanced at the timer in front of me. 3 days. Hearing this, Songji frowned slightly. Why is it so short this time? I smiled, signaling that after these few crossovers, I had a hunch. Just a few more trips, and I'll be able to fully control the exact timing of the spatial portal. Songji's eyes lit up at that. Are you serious? If we can actually control when the portal opens, we won't have to be so passive anymore. We can cross over whenever we want. I gave him a playful wink, saying nothing more and letting him guess for himself. However, right as I was chatting with Songji, the lookout reported through the walkie-talkie, telling us to look towards the southwest. Songji and I looked over at the same time. Over a kilometer away, a massive 20-meter-tall zombie was slowly moving. Behind it was a horde of pale green-skinned zombies with bulging, overdeveloped muscles. I drew in a sharp breath. Zombies can actually evolve to this extent? Songji immediately ordered the convoy to widen the gap, deviating from the original route to take a detour. It wasn't until the giant zombie was completely out of sight that Songji grabbed the walkie-talkie, warning everyone not to let their guard down. The appearance of that giant zombie shows just how terrifying this virus is. It's far more dangerous than what the records state. There are definitely still threats out there that we can't anticipate. Everyone, stay sharp and proceed with extreme caution. Turning off the walkie-talkie, Songji looked toward the dead city and spoke. Do you get the feeling that behind this zombie crisis, it's not just a simple loss of control? Take that giant zombie just now, for example. I suspect it's a biological entity intentionally created by the Qingchen Empire. It's just that this weapon ultimately went out of control. Hearing Song Zi's words, Chen Mo fell silent. The sky gradually darkened. In the distant shadows, sparse specks of light appeared. A teammate's voice crackled over the radio. Captain, it looks like there's someone ahead at 12 o'clock. Should we go check it out? If it happens to be a survivor base, we'll definitely be able to gather a lot more information about this world. Songzi flatly refused. Keep moving forward. Don't cause any unnecessary trouble. Our destination is the Hengliu Fusion Energy Center. The convoy continued its journey. 2 hours later, the convoy finally arrived at the Hengliu Fusion Energy Center. Drones took off for reconnaissance. The scene inside the center quickly appeared on the screen. The massive energy reactor had collapsed. High-rise buildings were leaning and toppled over. Traces of ruin were everywhere. There was also a significant amount of heavily damaged military equipment, proving that this place had once endured a brutal battle. The drones concluded their reconnaissance. Songzi immediately ordered the formation of a combat formation. Lookout team, stay behind and guard the convoy. If anything happens, report immediately. The rest of you, follow me. Everyone slowly advanced along the main pathway. The roars of zombies echoed in their ears. A few zombies had already noticed the commotion. The soldiers immediately opened fire with suppressed weapons. After a series of soft thwip-thwip sounds cutting through the air, the zombies fell one after another. She followed the directional signs on the wall, leading the team into the core area of the Hengliu Fusion Energy Center. After clearing out the zombies, the scientific research team followed them in. Through the remaining documents, everyone learned that this place was built over 200 years ago. That was during the era of the Qingchen Empire. There was an outstanding genius known as the Father of Hengliu. He single-handedly broke through the 10 major barriers of nuclear fusion, helping the Empire's fusion technology make leaps and bounds. This power plant also became a miracle of the Empire. Afterward, everyone accompanied the research team toward the energy core. Taking out the sampling equipment, a middle-aged researcher observed the core material structure. The core technology and the heat-resistant layer technology here are far superior to Blue Star's. We need to bring these samples back for research. The research team took out their recording equipment, meticulously documenting the core area. As the sampling process progressed, The middle-aged researcher's expression grew increasingly excited. The stacked structure of these materials is incredibly stable. It has natural stability and radiation resistance. Moreover, they even used a type of crystal with superconducting properties. If we can just bring these samples back, our country's nuclear energy development will undoubtedly make massive strides, even bringing it fully into the practical application phase. Wouldn't be impossible. These words fired up the entire research team. Everyone hoped to render meritorious service to the country and leave their mark in the history of scientific research. The middle-aged researcher immediately directed everyone to cut the materials and place the samples into sealed containers. Just as the sealing process was finished, a warning from the sentry echoed in Song's earpiece. Spotted 2 giant zombies to the southeast. They're moving at 6 km/h, approaching fast. Current distance is 1 kilometer. Estimated time of arrival, 10 minutes. Song's face darkened. He immediately ordered, quickly set up high-explosive anti-tank mines. Be ready to back us up at a moment's notice. Then he turned to me and the research team. All research personnel, fall back immediately. Retreat the way we came. The order was given, and everyone quickly prepared to evacuate. Half a minute later, everyone rushed out of the lab area. Panting heavily, I chased after them. The closer we got to the exit, the more clearly we could feel the faint tremors in the ground. A dozen seconds later, a massive explosion echoed from the direction where the convoy was parked. I knew right away that the anti-tank mines had been detonated. That meant the giant zombies were right on top of us. Everyone picked up their pace once again. When another explosion rang out, we had already made it back to the convoy. I yanked the car door open and jumped inside. Songs slammed on the gas, the engine roaring fiercely. I turned my head to look toward the explosion, only to see that about 300 or 400 meters away, 2 giant zombies roared as they charged out of the sea of fire. Their bodies were riddled with shrapnel, bellowing as they barreled straight toward the convoy. Songji immediately ordered the convoy to retreat. The giant zombies had massive builds and incredible speed. The distance between us was rapidly closing. Songji stared intently at the surveillance screen, deep in thought. He picked up the walkie-talkie and gave an order. Convoy, slow down. Match the speed of the giant zombies. We need to measure their data parameters. Research team, make sure to record this. Convoy is decelerating. A special forces member leaned out of the vehicle, aiming an anti-material sniper rifle right at a giant zombie. Bang! The large caliber bullet struck the zombie right in the forehead, blowing a small hole through its head. But the giant zombie merely let out a roar. It unleashed a furious bellow, taking massive strides and accelerating toward us. The crater on its forehead was already healing at a blistering pace. I couldn't help but stare in shock. A trembling voice from the research team came over the radio. This is an explosive cellular regeneration. It's not a normal mutated entity. This is definitely an engineered life form. Songji stayed silent for a few seconds before issuing another order. Switch to anti-aircraft, armor-piercing rounds, roof gunners. Reload immediately. A gunshot rang out. A burst of sparks erupted on the giant zombie's forehead. Its body took the hit, staggered, and collapsed. But the very next second, it crawled right back up. The surface tissue on its forehead had been blown apart, revealing a subcutaneous layer gleaming with a metallic sheen. The research team screamed in horror. That's metallized biological tissue. The virus directly altered the crystal lattice structure of its cells. This is unbelievable. Hearing this, Songji immediately ordered a switch to autocannons. The soldiers quickly mounted the cannons, unleashing a barrage of fire onto the giant zombie. After a series of deafening explosions, the giant zombie crashed to the ground once more. But it quickly scrambled back up, continuing its frantic charge at the convoy. Only a few spots on its body exposed that metallic gleam. The research team quickly delivered their analysis. Conventional weapons are useless. The giant zombie's physical durability is insanely high. We could try using fire. Songji immediately ordered the preparation of man-portable thermobaric weapons. All vehicles fall back to a safe distance. A small mushroom cloud suddenly billowed into the sky. Thousands of degrees of heat swept across the area. A scorching wave of heat blasted right into our faces. When the heat and flames dissipated, the giant zombie's outer skin and tissues had been scorched to ash by the extreme temperature. But it still wasn't dead. It staggered to its feet and began wandering aimlessly. The research team reported over the radio. The giant zombie's visual and olfactory systems have been destroyed by the high heat. Based on calculations of its cellular regeneration rate, it will take about 2 days to recover. In other words, high-temperature flames can, for a certain period of time, significantly reduce their threat level. Hearing this, she ordered the deployment of tactical drones, drop white phosphorus and thermite bombs. Several drones took off from the roofs of the vehicles, carrying munitions as they dove straight toward the remaining giant zombie. A sharp whoosh tore through the air. The white phosphorus and thermite bombs detonated. Intense, high-temperature flames spread across the zombie's body. The giant zombie shrieked miserably in agony. It quickly lost its sight and sense of smell, crashing around wildly like a headless fly. Testing, mission complete. He immediately ordered the convoy to speed away. He pulled up the coordinates for the Jinhui Lithography Center and set it as the destination. We sped all the way there. An hour later, we arrived at the target location. Everyone pried open the warped alloy doors. It was a scene of utter chaos. Signs of battle were everywhere. Incomplete skeletons were scattered all over the place. Songja picked up a broken component and handed it to a researcher. The researcher held it in his hand, examining it closely. Carbon nanotubes. This is the microscopic structure of a carbon tube. Based on this, we can deduce that they were able to achieve stable nanoscale production. The researcher looked around, then walked over to inspect a machine in the corner. After a moment, he said, "This is a smart quantum calibration system. The machinery didn't require manual labor. The machines themselves could autocorrect any margin of error." Everyone continued deeper inside. Row after row, high-tech lithography machines appeared before our eyes. The research team brought out their scanners to test them. The results came back quickly. The startup system is fried, but the control logic is still intact. The core is the oscillation interference array, and what's more, it's completely undamaged. If we just bring back a few samples, our nation's chip manufacturing industry will experience miraculous growth. We won't have to worry about being bottlenecked by rivals anymore. A flash of joy appeared in Songzi's eyes. He ordered the team members to assist in dismantling the key modules. After packing them into sealed containers, the squad prepared to move out. Just then, the lookout team's voice crackled over the radio. "Captain, we have survivors approaching the target." "There are 3 of them, no visible weapons so far." Everyone was stunned to hear that. "There are actually survivors?" Songji was also a bit surprised. He immediately dispatched the Black Dragon squad and the research team to go negotiate. At the same time, he pulled up the live feed from a handheld drone. On the screen, the Black Dragon squad and the research team were facing the survivors from a safe distance. A man among the survivors was writing words in the dirt. After translating it, they learned that he wanted to trade gold for water and food. The Black Dragon squad didn't take the gold, but simply tossed them some basic supplies. Then, through questioning, they gathered some intel. Zombies weren't the strongest entities out there. There were far more terrifying types of zombies. It's just that they had never seen them with their own eyes. These people came from a small-scale survivor base of only about 30 to 50 people. As for the cause of the zombie outbreak, they were completely clueless. The Black Dragon squad then let the 3 of them leave. After everyone regrouped with the Black Dragon squad, they headed to the material extraction zone of the lithography plant. This place housed ultra-rare carbon nanotubes. The research team collected samples, planning to bring them back to Blue Star for artificial synthesis testing. Once all tasks were completed, everyone returned to the convoy to rest. I leaned back in my seat, an overwhelming wave of exhaustion washing over me, and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, the countdown timer in my eyes only had 5 minutes left. The convoy was already prepped and ready. She patted my shoulder and laughed. "Wake up, sleepyhead. Are we about to head back?" I nodded sheepishly. The moment the countdown hit 0, the familiar blue light screen opened up before my eyes. The convoy drove in one by one. When my vision cleared, we were back in the underground isolation chamber at Lopner. The electronic speakers overhead blared. "Confirmed. All vehicles have returned. All personnel, prepare yourselves. Initiating saturation decontamination protocol." A thick white mist instantly enveloped the convoy. After the mist cleared, Songji, the others, and I stepped out of the vehicles one after another. The research team immediately reported their findings to the higher-ups. Song Ji gave a debrief on the operation's progress and events. Upon learning about the existence of the giant zombies, the leadership decided that for the next crossover, we wouldn't use off-road vehicles anymore. Instead, they would directly deploy main battle tanks, equipped with the latest generation of armor-piercing rounds. This statement left everyone in the meeting room dumbfounded. Main battle tanks are the core equipment of Great Sia right now. When paired with armor-piercing rounds, their destructive power is absolutely terrifying. They're exponentially stronger than mortars, but it didn't stop there. The higher-ups also ordered us to bring the king of close combat and shoulder-fired missiles. The explosive yield of these weapons is equivalent to 6 blocks of TNT. Hearing this news, everyone's jaws dropped so wide you could stuff a duck egg in them. To ensure our safety, the country was even mobilizing heavy weaponry of this caliber. After leaving the meeting room, Qin Xinyu found me for a quick chat. She gave me psychological counseling for a solid half hour. Knowing there were still 5 days until the next crossover, she went ahead and requested a 4-day leave for me. Afterward, accompanied by Qin Xinyu and 2 members of the Black Dragon Squad, we went hiking up Mount Huangshan together. Halfway up the mountain, I stared blankly down at the shimmering lights of countless homes in the city below. By the time we reached the peak, dawn was just breaking. I let out a massive shout, venting all the fear that had built up over the past few days. After that, we headed back to Modu. This was the hellhole where I grew up. But barely a few hours after landing, I bumped into my ex-girlfriend. She was linking arms with a guy in a high-end suit. It was none other than Su Ming. When Su Ming saw Qin Xinyu, his eyes instantly lit up. I was just about to leave when he blocked my path. Su Ming stepped right in front of Qin Xinyu, staring intently at her face. Revealing a greedy look, he said, "Name your price. 100 grand, 300 grand, 500 grand, you name it, even 1,000,000, I can make it happen. After all, a beauty of your caliber is truly worth it." I glanced over at my ex-girlfriend. She forced an awkward smile, but still didn't let go of Su Ming's arm. This is the power of money. If that's not enough, then 1,000,000. Seeing Qin Xinyu not reacting, Su Ming got a bit annoyed and upped the price. In his eyes, there wasn't a single woman in this world who couldn't be bought. But she quickly turned and asked me. Qin Xinyu acted as if she hadn't even heard the 1,000,000 figure. She affectionately linked her arm with mine and casually asked, as if no one else was around, "Is this your ex-girlfriend? She's nothing special." After saying that, completely ignoring the pale faces of those two, she pulled me straight out of there. At dusk, while Qin Xinyu and I were reminiscing about fun times from the past, a member of the Black Dragon Squad leaned in close to me and whispered that someone was trying to make a move on me. "We've already contacted the local security bureau. You don't need to worry about your safety." I nodded calmly and continued chatting with Qin Xinyu. 10 minutes later, people from the security bureau arrived and swiftly arrested the suspects. After interrogation, it was revealed that these guys were Su Ming's lackeys. Because Su Ming had lost face on the street earlier that day, he sent his men to teach me a lesson. When Du Guodong found out, he declared he would punish them severely and without mercy. He immediately dispatched investigators to thoroughly look into the illegal activities of Su Ming and his father. Their entire network of connections was also uprooted. Just a few days after the crackdown, Su Ming and his father were cuffed and thrown in jail. I had also rested enough. Seeing the countdown timer had 2 days left, I returned to Lopnur with Qin Xinyu and the others. After regrouping with Song Ji, we prepared to set out again. On the final day of the countdown, I saw 10 main battle tanks stationed at the base. There were also 10 armored vehicles, which made my heart skip a beat. Songzi stood beside me and explained, "Whether it's the tanks or the armored vehicles, all the equipment on them is custom-made. They're also equipped with the latest defense systems." The moment the countdown hit 0, the blue screen of light appeared once again. The engines of the tanks and armored vehicles roared to life. I sat in the tank's command cabin, picked up the radio, and spoke. "The countdown this time is 3 days. We have plenty of time. Let's go find those giant zombies. Time to test our firepower." Song gave the order. Radar activated, searching for target signals. The convoy hadn't been moving for long when a giant zombie was detected. The drone feed was being streamed directly into the tank. I could see the giant zombie lurking among a horde of the undead. It still had large scorch marks on its body. "It's the same one we encountered before," a member of the research team exclaimed in surprise. As expected, this type of cellular core allowed it to basically heal its wounds in just a few days. Songzi ordered Tank 1 to lock on target and fire. With a loud boom, the massive shell fired with pinpoint accuracy. It hit its mark, blowing the zombie's head to pieces. It staggered and then collapsed, completely lifeless. Seeing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Cheers erupted over the radio. If even a tank shell couldn't take it down, they would have had to rethink their entire plan for the next phase. The members of the research team were ecstatic. They requested to clear out the remaining zombies, so they could study the giant zombie's internal structure. Songji agreed to their request. He ordered the armored vehicles to advance. Rocket launchers and machine guns unleashed a heavy barrage of fire. It didn't take long to wipe out the zombie horde. Songji gave another order. He had the drones scout the area for any remaining threats. After confirming it was safe, the research team, under the protection of the Black Dragon Squad, approached the giant zombie's corpse. Through the drone feed, I saw a researcher wearing gloves knock on the zombie's body. It made a loud metallic clang. They took out their testing equipment. Then they reported that its bone density exceeded that of ordinary alloys. It was at least equivalent to armor plating. That was 300 millimeters thick. I need to cut off a piece to take back for research. A high-precision electric saw started up. A 30-centimeter section of its outer shell, along with the muscle tissue, was placed into a sample box. The sampling process was complete. Everyone boarded the armored vehicles and continued to move forward. They hadn't gone far when the radar detected a group of survivors. The drone confirmed it was the same group we met before. The tanks immediately headed toward them. After we met up, the man who had traded for supplies last time stepped forward. Through the translation software, we learned his name was Duke. Duke said he meant no harm. The survivors lowered their weapons one by one. The Black Dragon Squad did a sweep and confirmed the area was secure. Only then did I step out of the tank. The members of the War Dragon Squad immediately surrounded me. Duke's gaze fell upon me. He took a few steps forward and clasped his hands in a gesture of respect. He said gratefully, "Thank you all so much. The supplies you gave us last time were a huge help." It was nothing, just a little food and water. By the way, where are you all from? Duke said they came from a small survivor base to the west. They had come out this time to search for food. They heard the explosion from this direction and came to check it out. He then curiously asked where we were from. He said he'd never seen such powerful weapons before. I smiled and replied, "I come from a place very far away. We're here to assess the situation." Duke's eyes lingered on the tank and the armored vehicles behind me. His face was filled with admiration. "Your weapons look incredibly powerful. Stronger than any I've ever seen. All of this was researched and developed by our country, and we have things even more powerful than this." Duke's face showed clear astonishment. He couldn't believe there was something even stronger. After a moment of silence, Duke began to explain his group's plight. "Do you have any more food? Our base is about to run out of supplies. I have gold here. I can trade it with you." Chen Mo waved his hand, signaling it wasn't necessary. Then he called a soldier over to get some water and food to give to him. Duke's voice trembled as he said his thanks. "Thank you." Afterward, the tank convoy moved on toward the next objective. After 7 or 8 hours of travel toward the mining area in the southwest, we finally arrived. Black Dragon Squad, on guard. Dragon Hunt and War Dragon Squads, search for ore. Science team, collect data. Soon after, everyone had collected about 2 tons of ore. Among them were spirit-detecting ore and super metal ore. There were also some other quite rare minerals. "Alert zombie at 200 meters, Songzi shouted. I looked up. In the distance, a regular zombie crawled out from a pile of rubble. But the next second, an armored vehicle charged forward. It crushed the zombie flat. With only an hour left until the space gate opened, everyone had finished their collection tasks and were sitting on the tanks and armored vehicles, chatting. This haul really wasn't bad. Not only did we eliminate the giant zombie and get a sample from it, but we also collected a lot of ore. If we bring these ores back for research, the scientific and technological level of the Great Xia will definitely take a huge leap forward." I looked around at everyone. Every face was beaming with a smile. I smiled happily as well. Time passed quickly. The countdown timer in my vision hit 0. The space gate opened once again, and the blue screen of light appeared before everyone. But this time, I felt something was different. I focused my thoughts, willing it to grow a little larger. The edge of the blue screen of light actually expanded. Let's try making it smaller. The newly expanded edge immediately shrank back to its original size. My heart pounded. I tried it one more time. This space gate, it can really change according to my will. Then I willed it to close, and then to open again. The blue screen of light actually closed, and then it opened once more. Seeing the space gate close and then reopen, everyone around me was stunned. Finally, Songzi asked with a tremor in his voice. "You can control the space gate now?" I replied excitedly. Hearing this, Songzi was immediately overjoyed. This is no longer a randomly appearing space gate, but a stable wormhole. This is a historic breakthrough. It means our future strategy may need to be adjusted. The Great Xie will develop even more rapidly, entering a new era. After the initial excitement, everyone drove the tanks and armored vehicles into the space gate. My vision went dark again. When I saw light, I was back in Lop Nur. After a series of thorough decontamination procedures, Songzi immediately reported the news to his superiors. Orders were quickly issued. With Lop Nur as its core, the off-world exploration base was officially established. A week later, thousands of scientific researchers arrived. The military facility was expanded by hundreds of kilometers. Dozens of high-rise buildings shot up. 2 heavy combined arms brigades moved in to garrison the base. As for me, my understanding of the space gate's application had also deepened. I can, by limiting the energy flow, configure the space gate. There are 3 modes: no entry-exit, one-way travel, and two-way travel. On Wednesday, I received a classified order from the state requesting me to go to a massive plaza to open the space gate. As soon as I arrived at the plaza, I was stunned. There were people everywhere. All sorts of missile launchers and tanks and armored vehicles were lined up in rows. I even saw something over 10 meters tall. It was a missile launcher vehicle over 20 meters long. After the initial shock, I understood that the nation was officially preparing to set foot in the other world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have planned to dispatch 2 heavy combined arms brigades. So, I focused all my power and opened the blue screen of light. Instantly, on the vast plaza, a space gate hundreds of meters wide appeared. The roaring torrent of steel advanced into the space gate in an orderly fashion. A week after the army entered the other world, I stood on the observation deck of the off-world command center, looking out at the completely transformed military base. The location chosen by the heavy combined arms brigade was excellent. It was on the outskirts of the city, near the mining area. Being stationed near the city allowed them to utilize some of the city's resources, and being close to the mines made excavation very convenient. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that the military infrastructure had also entered the other world. Construction at the base was proceeding at a dizzying pace. In just 5 days, a satellite launch base had been established. At the same time, drone squadrons were deployed to conduct a comprehensive reconnaissance of this world. Perhaps because so many people were gathered in one place, the scent of humans was picked up by the zombies. The zombies in the city had formed a horde of 7,000 to 8,000. They were swarming toward the base. The base's satellites immediately detected the enemy horde. Warning sirens blared urgently. The off-world commander-in-chief, Wang Zhan, immediately issued mobilization orders. 1 heavy combined arms brigade was ready at the front line. To ensure there were no mistakes, the rocket artillery and tanks were also in firing position. He waited for the zombies to enter the optimal firing range. He immediately commanded the long-range artillery units to commence a saturation barrage. In the command center, through the drone feed, we could see more than 10 armored vehicles equipped with heavy artillery. Their powerful barrels were exposed. They opened fire on the zombie horde over 10 kilometers away. Immediately after, in the midst of the zombie horde, dozens of small mushroom clouds rose from the explosions. The zombies were pulverized by the bombardment. A few minutes later, the shelling stopped. A report came from the observer in the command room. No signs of life remain in the target area. The zombie horde has been completely annihilated. So this is the power of our nation? This is just terrifying. A horde of nearly 10,000 zombies wiped out before they even got close. It really makes you question those movies. I don't know how they make those zombie films, where entire countries get wiped out by zombies. It's just unbelievable. Over the next half-month, the engineering corps at the base frantically built up radar systems, multi-layered defensive positions, electromagnetic railgun defense towers, and AI-powered automated patrol turrets. The Laishanshin Hospital, the armory, and other facilities were just completed. Less than a month later, This suburban area had been transformed into a military base. Every morning, dozens of vehicles would head toward the mining area and return in the evening, fully loaded. Rare strategic ores were continuously transported back to Blue Star through the space gate. Meanwhile, at the Huaxia Research Institute, Bai Yu gritted his teeth as he looked at the test results in his hand. Another failure. The Eagle Nation's blockade on photolithography machine materials is too strict. With the current material limitations, it would take at least another 50 years to catch up to the Eagle Nation. The gap is just too massive. While they were still trying to figure out how to overcome air resistance, the office door was suddenly pushed open. A researcher reported excitedly, "Director, these are the new materials that were just delivered. They're called Divine Spirit Ore and Hypermetal Ore. I heard they can be used directly for photolithography." Bai Yu froze, thinking he had misheard. "Are you kidding me? What kind of material can be used directly for photolithography? That's pure fantasy." He completely refused to believe such a material existed. But when he saw the chunk of divine spirit or under the sunlight, radiating a faint blue glow, with crystals seemingly swirling inside it, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. He picked up the material and examined it closely under the light. The longer he looked, the more excited his expression became. After a long while, he looked up and asked, "Where did this come from?" The researcher answered cautiously, "It's a military secret, sir." Bai Yu raised an eyebrow. "With my level of clearance, there are still things kept secret from me. Don't tell me it's alien technology." Bai Yu let out a soft chuckle. His eyes turned serious. "All right, no matter where you came from, if you can conduct electricity and resonate, then I'll turn you into the brain of Great Shia's lithography machine." With that, he grabbed the ore and headed straight for the testing area. Meanwhile, at a small survivor base in the other world, Duke spoke excitedly to leader Bu Wen. "Boss, I ran into that group of people again. They're truly different. Ever since the apocalypse hit, we all know just how disgusting and filthy human nature can be. Forget about helping others. Just not kicking someone when they're down is already a blessing. Yet that group of people unconditionally helped me twice, and they wouldn't even accept the gold I offered. They're practically saints. No, wait, there are no saints left in this world. That group definitely has an ulterior motive. We just don't know what it is yet. Boss, you weren't there. You couldn't feel the purity and the genuine sincerity coming from them. If they're actually the bad guys, then I'd rather this whole world just collapse and be done with it." As they were talking, a deafening explosion echoed from outside. The earth-shattering blast made the entire small base tremble. Debris fell from the ceiling. A guard rushed in, panic written all over his face, his voice trembling. "It looks like a war broke out outside." Bowen looked up, his expression changing drastically. "That sounds like artillery fire, and heavy artillery at that. A scale like this, that's at least half an army group firing simultaneously. Impossible. The Empire collapsed 50 years ago. Even if there are remnants of their army, there's no way they'd have this kind of firepower density. This is Heavenly Wrath level firepower. Take a few men and go scout it out." Duke's group quickly headed in the direction of the noise, pushing aside the bushes, but as they got closer, the shock in their eyes only deepened. In the distance, an endless torrent of steel converged into a giant behemoth, unleashing a saturation bombardment on the zombie horde far away. Under that barrage of firepower, the zombie horde was obliterated into dust, crumbling like clay chickens and pottery dogs. Even the terrifyingly massive mutant zombies were no exception. Under the artillery fire, they were reduced to a pile of scrap. Duke's group stared in absolute disbelief. Where the hell did this army come from? This is terrifying. They're wiping out zombies like it's a joke. Duke snapped back to reality, turning around to report back to his uncle. But just as Duke's group turned around, 7 or 8 armored vehicles roared toward them, kicking up a cloud of dust, and slammed on the brakes right behind them. Heavily armed soldiers stepped out of the vehicles, one by one. Countless red laser sights were aimed squarely at their chests. Then, an older soldier stepped forward. His translator device emitted a cold, mechanical voice. "Hello, our leader invites you over for some tea." Afterward, Duke followed the soldiers to the military camp. The moment they stepped inside, they were so stunned by the sight before them that they were left speechless. Rows upon rows of tanks and armored vehicles were parked silently to the side. A massive formation of hundreds of missile launchers stood ready. The air was thick with the heavy scent of gunpowder. The soldier's footsteps echoed with a resounding, commanding presence. Duke's eyes grew slightly red. This was the long-lost sense of security, a feeling that belonged to civilization and order. Stepping into the temporary command center, he looked inside and saw Chen Mo sitting there, drinking tea with the leader. He was instantly dumbfounded. This is unbelievable. I thought that squad from before was your entire force. I never expected you to have such a massive army backing you. By the time he finished speaking, his eyes were filled with absolute shock. He couldn't even fathom it. All along the way here, the planes and artillery they had passed, along with all those high-tech weapons, all belonged to the same faction as that small squad from before. With this kind of power, even the Empire at its absolute peak was only at this level. I smiled and greeted him, then introduced Wang Zhan, who was standing next to me. This is our Commander-in-Chief, Mr. Wang Zhan. Duke looked at the imposing middle-aged man, suddenly feeling a bit nervous. He stammered, "Hello, sir." Wang Zhan looked at the fidgety young man in front of him. He smiled kindly. "Don't be nervous. Have a seat, please. It just so happens I have a few things I'd like to ask you about." Hearing that, Duke grew even more tense. "Sir, I'm not tired. I'm fine standing. Are you kidding? In front of the leader of such a powerful army, how could he dare to sit down? If this were one of the big shots from the Empire, he wouldn't even be worthy of a single glance." Wang Zhan didn't force the issue and continued asking, "What's the current situation at your survivor base? How many people are there? What are your living conditions like? Our base currently has a little over 3,000 people left, but our food supplies are completely depleted. Many of the survivors have had to switch to eating one meal every 2 days, but from what I know, other bases have even started trading their children for meat." Wang Zhan pondered for a moment after hearing this. "I'm currently short on people to help out with some work. Basic necessities won't be an issue. Safety is guaranteed. It's an 8-hour workday, working 5 days with 2 days off. Working for just 1 day can earn you enough food for a whole week." Duke was stunned for a few seconds. He couldn't believe his ears. He asked again, terrified that this was just a hallucination. "Really?" Wang Zhan chuckled. "Rest assured. Of course it's real. I've even prepared some entertainment and lifestyle goods for you all." With that, Wang Zhan stood up. Everyone headed to the training ground. The lights were turned on. Mountains of essential supplies were piled high. There were even TVs, air conditioners, gaming consoles, and much more. Duke was completely dumbfounded. Then, he slapped himself hard across the face, just to make sure he wasn't dreaming. "Are these things for us too?" "That's right, they're all for you." Hearing this, large tears began streaming down Duke's face. After a long while, he suddenly looked up. A long-lost glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes. "I have to go back and tell the boss meanwhile. Back at the survivor base. Inside the base, they still haven't returned." Ju Wen sat at his desk, anxiously asking another subordinate. "Reporting to the boss, still no news at all." Gu Wen's expression darkened. In the apocalypse, no news meant death. That was the cruel reality of the end of the world. Commander, it's bad my Da Wang isn't going to make it. Please, you have to come take a look." A middle-aged woman in her 40s rushed in, panic written all over her face. Everyone quickly hurried to a makeshift isolation room. The moment they stepped inside, they were hit by a damp, sweltering, and rotting stench. On a straw mat on the floor lay a little girl, about 10 years old. Her calf was wrapped in bandages, but dark brown blood had already seeped through. If you smelled closely, there was a foul odor of decay. With just one glance, Gu Wen knew the girl couldn't be saved. The wound was severely infected. In this apocalyptic world with a severe shortage of medicine, this was a death sentence. And Chu Wen then looked at the mother and silently shook his head. Seeing this, the mother didn't scream or wail. She just stepped forward, gently stroking her daughter's cheek. As tears streamed endlessly down her face, his heart ached at the sight. He took out his own food ration for the day, placed it on the ground, and quietly left. Returning to the highest point of the base, he stared blankly at the crumbling settlement. No medicine, no food, no water, and terrifying zombies roaming outside. They couldn't hold on any longer. Just as he was debating whether to disband the base, hurried footsteps echoed from behind. He turned his head to look and realized it was Duke, who had gone missing. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Duke's ecstatic face as he shouted, "Xiao Li, we're saved! We're actually saved!" "Saved from what?" "Remember that group of people I told you about? The ones who gave me food and water for free? Their main force has arrived. It's packed. There must be tens of thousands of them. That artillery fire blasting the zombies earlier? That was their army. Their heavy firepower is absolutely insane. Tanks and armored vehicles lined up in rows. There's gotta be at least 1,000 of them. They even have helicopters, missile launchers, you name it. And their supplies are incredibly abundant. They want to trade supplies for our labor. An 8-hour workday, with a 2-hour break in the morning. Are you for real? Could they be scammers? Luring people over just to exploit them to the bone. Hearing the boss's reaction, Duke smiled. They didn't treat me like a stranger at all. They're all civilized people, not like the savages of this apocalypse. Besides, their power is plain as day. If they really wanted to use force, we wouldn't have any way to fight back anyway. Gu Wen fell deep into thought. Duke was right. If the other side truly had that kind of power, then whether we believed them or not didn't even matter. So after weighing the options, he immediately decided to notify everyone. Urgently recall all scavenging teams. Return to base immediately. We're moving out. As Gu Wen's orders were passed down, from the tattered tents, the tin shacks, and the thatched huts, people stepped out one by one. When they heard 8-hour workday and the phrase 2-hour morning break, everyone thought they had misheard. Are you kidding? It's the apocalypse, and we still get these kinds of benefits? Even before the end of the world, we didn't have it this good. Getting off work at 10 p.m. was already considered lucky. Hearing the murmurs of doubt from the crowd, Gu Wen didn't get angry. I know what I'm saying sounds like a dream. In your eyes, it's impossible. But it's the truth. Duke saw it with his own eyes. They are a real army, not remnants of the Empire. They have discipline, vitality, food, and more importantly, precious medicine. Whoever is willing to trust me, follow me. With that, Gu Wen grabbed his weapon and walked out. Duke followed right behind him. Then came the third person, the fourth, the fifth, the 10th, the 100th, the 1,000th, almost all the survivors, everyone in the base, followed along. 2 hours later, they arrived at the Blue Star base, established in the other world. When they saw the rows of tanks, armored vehicles, and the strictly disciplined army, every single one of them was left speechless, especially when they saw the sick and injured among them, being treated and injected with medicine on the spot by military medics. After getting their wounds treated, their eyes welled up with tears. For the first time, they realized that in this apocalyptic world, civilization truly still existed. Afterward, the rest of the people were escorted by the soldiers in charge to the resettlement area. They saw rows of neatly arranged modular houses. Stepping inside, it was fully equipped with all amenities. There were water heaters, TVs, and even air conditioners. There were even gaming consoles. No way, am I dreaming? Quick, slap me. Let me see if I'm dreaming. Gu Wen was the same, seeing this equipment that only existed in dreams. He slapped himself hard across the face. After confirming it wasn't a dream, his eyes instantly turned red. It was all real. Over the following period, the survivors went to work every day, saving the military a massive amount of manpower. Gu Wen and Duke were also invited by the military to serve as temporary local advisors. As for the other survivor bases in the region, they began a systematic integration process. Some bases, despite their incredibly harsh conditions, still stubbornly held onto their moral bottom line. Their humanity remained intact. For people like that, the military took them in directly, moving them into the resettlement area. However, there were also some survivor bases where humanity had long since been twisted. Trading children for meat was considered mild. Many even referred to the elderly, the sick, and the disabled as two-legged sheep. Children under 10 were even called premium two-legged sheep. They claimed their meat was incredibly tender and soft and tasted delicious and fragrant. Wang Zhan issued an order regarding these types of bases. They were to be completely and utterly annihilated. After Songji received this order, he immediately led 2,000 soldiers and over 200 tanks to launch saturation attacks on those bases. Once everything had been properly handled, I sat in the command room, staring intently at the new 12-hour countdown that had just appeared before my eyes. My eyes widened in shock involuntarily. Then, I picked up the walkie-talkie and requested a connection to Commander-in-Chief Wang Zhan. Beep, 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 hello? Commander, a new countdown has appeared on my end. I have a feeling that this time, it's going to be a completely new world. As soon as I said that, Wang Zhan's breathing on the other end of the line instantly grew heavy. What, a new world? During this period, thanks to the new materials, the domestic scientific research community had continuously made major breakthroughs. The domestically produced lithography machine was already completed. Nuclear fusion had entered a whole new stage. The entire country had entered an era of rapid, miraculous development. And all of this stemmed from one young man. Now that young man was once again facing danger. The nation would absolutely not stand idly by. Besides, who knows? This might be another new opportunity. Therefore, I was immediately ordered to return to Lop-Nur. They told me to wait patiently. Soon after I returned to Lop-Nur, the Black Dragon Squad, the Battle Dragon Squad, and the Thunder Dragon Squad assembled once again. Song Zi had also arrived. He looked at me and patted my shoulder firmly. Not bad. I thought we wouldn't get the chance to work together again. I didn't expect us to be fighting side by side again so soon. If I had a choice, I'd rather not have this opportunity. I just want to stay home and chill. Time flew by. The 12 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Song. He looked at his squad members. Everyone, check your gear immediately. Over 20 soldiers instantly double-checked their equipment. Comm system, normal. Ammo, fully loaded. Armor, normal. Checks complete. I let out a sigh of relief, watching the countdown before my eyes approach 0. It's time. Prepare to move out. The familiar blue light screen opened up once again. Battle Dragon Squad, take the lead and clear the way. Roger that. The Vanguard soldiers stepped into the light screen. Then, the Thunder Dragon Squad's voice came through the comms. Gravity is normal. Atmosphere is normal. Safe to proceed. Songza gave the order, and the research team, along with the other 2 squads, stepped into the blue light screen, one after another. I followed closely behind. After the light screen vanished into thin air, Wang Zhan looked anxiously at the spot where everyone had just disappeared. You all better come back safely. On the other side, my vision transitioned from darkness back to light. What met my eyes was a desolate mountainous forest. Looking into the distance, a few ruined bell towers could be seen. Song. She asked how much time was left on the countdown. I glanced at the countdown before my eyes. 5 hours left. Pretty similar to the first time you crossed over to the zombie world. The time limit wasn't very long back then either, right? Yeah. But just as I finished speaking, muffled gunshots echoed in the distance. They were followed by a series of rapid-fire shots. Everyone turned toward the sound, instantly on alert. Songji immediately gave a tactical hand signal. Chen Mo ordered the entire squad to switch on their infrared scanners. Hold formation. Advance. As the team advanced onto a plane, they were stunned by the scene before them. There on the plane, a small squad of soldiers was protecting a group of villagers from a swarm of gigantic insects. The creatures were covered in thick carapaces. They had long fangs and small caliber rounds bounced right off them. I snapped back to reality. It looks like we've stumbled into an insect plague event. Songji quickly assessed the situation. Over 30 insects in the swarm, but their origin was still unknown. Can't tell if this is a planetary level or interstellar level plague. An interstellar plague means these bugs can travel between planets, devouring civilizations across star systems. This planet is probably a lost cause. If it's only planetary, there's still a chance to fight back. Chen Mo spoke up. Look at their gear. They're still using conventional firearms, about 50 years behind us. Just then, the soldiers fighting off the insects seemed to have spotted us. They sent a distress signal our way. Can you help us? We're about to be overrun. I was stunned. They were speaking Daxia. Everyone was shocked. Song. She barked an order. Doesn't matter if they're our countrymen or not. Saving lives comes first. Black Dragon Squad, form up, covering fire, Roger. The Black Dragon Squad immediately deployed their heavy ground artillery. They aimed directly at the insect swarm and unleashed a devastating barrage. High explosive shells rained down into the middle of the swarm. Against the immense power of the bombs, the giant insects were instantly torn to shreds. After just one volley, the once ferocious swarm was completely annihilated. Once the soldiers were safe, they quickly approached us. They saluted and asked formally, I'm Liu Tan, captain of the 38th Company, Leiting Army Group. Thank you for your assistance, comrades. May I ask which army group you belong to? Song. Zhe looked at the man's blood-streaked face and his determined eyes, and instinctively returned the salute. In that brief exchange, both sides could sense a kindred spirit in the other, a shared origin. As Liu Tian's gaze swept over our squad's equipment, he saw the sophisticated high-energy assault rifles and the latest generation exoskeletons we wore. His brow furrowed. Our gear was clearly far too advanced. Song, he was also thinking to himself. Based on what he'd seen, he could make a preliminary judgment. This place was indeed Daxia, but it was a version of Daxia suffering from an insect plague. But how could he explain their identity to these people? Should he just come out and say they were from another world? Would they think he was crazy? At that very moment, I stepped out from the ranks. I extended my hand to Liu Tian. Hello? We're from the Daxia of another world, I said calmly. I said the words. We're from the Daxia of another world. The entire area fell so silent you could hear the wind. Yue Weifeng was stunned speechless. His expression shifted from bewilderment to shock, and then to utter disbelief. You said the Daxia of another world? The soldiers behind him exchanged bewildered glances. They all gasped. Some were in disbelief. Others had a flicker of excitement in their eyes. Yue Weifeng stared at me intently. His voice was a little hoarse. Are you sure this isn't some kind of joke? I didn't flinch. I gave a solemn nod. Their equipment, their bearing, and that distinct technological aura made it impossible for Yue Weifeng to laugh it off. This gear, this firepower, it makes sense that it's not from our world. He immediately took out his military terminal to contact his superiors. Reporting to the battalion commander, we've encountered a unit here that claims to be a force from another world's Daxia. Their equipment is completely different from ours. Extremely powerful weaponry. Requesting further instructions. Less than a minute later, the battalion commander was also stunned. What did you say? From another world? 10 minutes later, the news had been reported up the chain of command to the army group commander. And eventually, it reached the highest levels of the insect plague world's Daxia, the supreme conference room of the Central Command. Inside the brightly lit Capital Command Center, an old man with white hair, wearing a general's uniform, shot to his feet. What did you say? They claim to be from another world's Daxia? This was the supreme commander of Central Command, of the insect plague world's Daxia, Xia Haorui. His expression was extremely grave. An aide beside him quickly reported the situation. Reporting, sir. Ever since half a year ago, after that unidentified meteorite crashed into the Pacific Ocean, Zerg nests have been erupting from the ocean floor. The Zerg plague swept across the oceans. Now, many areas along the southeast coast have fallen, and Western nations are on the brink of collapse. We're also on the defensive across all fronts. If the intel is accurate, they might possess technologies that are completely beyond our understanding, Xia Haorui said, his voice trembling. Connect the video feed immediately. A few minutes later, the terminal was brought before me. On the screen appeared an old man with a face full of wrinkles, but with eyes as sharp as torches. I am the Supreme Commander of Great Chia's Central Command, Xia Haorui. His voice was deep and resonant, exuding an imposing aura forged through the fires of war. You claim you're from a great Xia in another world. My eyes remained calm, as I gave a slight nod. That's right. My name is Chen Mo. We truly come from another world. A great Xia identical to yours, but without the Zerg plague. The entire conference room fell into a dead silence. Xia Haorui stared intently at the screen. After a long silence, a staff officer quickly brought over the identification results and whispered his report. Chief, the facial features of the people on the other side, their irises and their fingerprints, we couldn't find any matching information anywhere in our database. Their equipment style is completely different from our military's, and their technological trajectory shows distinct differences. There's no way this is faked. Based on our comprehensive analysis, it's highly likely they're telling the truth. Xia Haorui slowly nodded, his gaze profound. No identity records, yet they speak our language. Different equipment, but equally effective and advanced. It seems they really are soldiers from another great Xia. I looked up at the comm screen, at that wrinkled yet incredibly resolute face, and spoke in a calm, sincere tone. I can see that you're currently facing a Zerg crisis. The fact that we could come here was actually just a coincidence. But our time is limited. In 2 hours, we have to head back. We expect to return within a week. Xia Haorui gave a slight nod, a hint of regret flashing in his eyes. With time being so tight, I'm afraid you comrades won't make it to Central Command in time. Right then, Su Yan stepped forward, her voice decisive. Then let's proceed with a scientific and technological intel exchange first. We'll share our current research directions and technological achievements. When we return next time, we can directly launch collaborative research. These words made Xia Haorui's eyes light up. He immediately nodded. All right, that's an excellent idea. He turned to instruct the staff officer beside him. Immediately, gather the documents for our core scientific research projects. Organize them all, including energy, weapon defense systems, and mecha technology. Not long after, the chief scientific researcher, Dr. Wang Jiwan, appeared on the other side of the screen. He looked like he had stayed up for several nights straight, but his eyes were still incredibly sharp. This is a summary of our great Shia's current scientific research. Wang Jiwan held up the terminal in his hand to the camera. After the Zerg plague broke out, we consolidated all our scientific research forces under Project Divine Light. The main research direction is high-energy particle weapons, defensive shields, mecha technology, and reverse-engineered gene recombination. The data was compiled in a hurry, so it's not entirely comprehensive, but it should at least give you an understanding of our current level of technology. Su Yan didn't hesitate either. She synchronized the data she had prepared from her side. It was a summary of their carbon-based technology system, superfusion energy, and other core fields, including a summary of applied, carbon-based, and Xuanhui energy technologies, along with synthetic starch, hypersonic missiles, the type 0055 10,000-ton destroyer, and electromagnetic catapult-equipped nuclear aircraft carriers, among other technologies. When the data transfer between the two sides was complete, the research terminals on both ends displayed a system confirmation message. In that moment, the two tech trees, one from the insect plague world and one from Blue Star's Daxia, had connected for the first time. I looked at the time display on my wrist device. About an hour left. We have to go back. Xia Harui's voice came through the communicator, somewhat somber, Comrade Chenmo. On behalf of the Daxia of the insect plague world, thank you for coming. You have brought us hope. I smiled faintly. We share the same roots. It's only natural that we help each other. When I return, we can discuss the next steps of our cooperation. By the way, is there a relatively safe base nearby? Yue Weifeng immediately replied, yes, 30 kilometers from here is the forward base of our Li's brigade. The terrain there is solid. The defenses are strong. It's a suitable place for a temporary rendezvous point. There are vehicles nearby, too. We'll take the vehicles. Escorted by Yue Weifeng, Su Yan and I, along with the others, and the villagers Yue Weifeng had been protecting, boarded the vehicles and began the journey back. The mountain peaks kicked up dust and sand. The smoke of war still lingered in the distant sky. By the time they reached the base, the final countdown on my retina hit 0. A deep blue portal of light slowly opened in the clearing. I turned and looked at Yue Weifeng. I said softly, see you next time. With that, I led the others into the portal of light. Amidst the shimmering blue light, their figures vanished into thin air, leaving Yue Weifeng standing there for a long time, staring up at the empty sky. He muttered, I hope you can really come back. Daxia Central Science and Research Center, Insect Plague World. It was late at night, but the entire research building was still brightly lit. Screens flickered, machines hummed. It was like a steel forge that never slept. Dr. Wang Jiwan stood before the main control panel. His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled through the data that had just been transmitted from the other world. Xuanhui stone, Shuanglan crystal, Lingtan ore, 3 strange minerals that didn't exist in their world were flashing with a blue light on the data panel. He muttered to himself, This can't be explained by material science. This is a miracle that transcends the limits of our civilization. He continued scrolling through the data, and the synthesis workshop with the insect race surrounding us. This technology is also incredibly important. There's also the Type 055 10,000-ton destroyer and the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier with electromagnetic catapults. It's a shame the oceans have become a no-go zone. Right after, he suddenly turned around, his voice trembling with emotion. Comrades, it looks like the battle armor technology system we've always dreamed of can finally be established. In an instant, the entire lab erupted. The faces of the researchers, originally full of exhaustion, after staying awake for 3 days and 3 nights, all stood up in unison, their eyes red and teary. Is it really feasible? As long as the energy density data of the profound ash stone is accurate, our reactor design can run on its own. Yes, the battle armor project is about to be revived. Project Li's is about to be rebooted. The air was filled with a mix of sheer excitement and hot tears. In a world ravaged by the Zerg plague, how many times had they dreamed that if they could possess a true legion of battle armors, they might just be able to carve out a path of survival for humanity through the endless sea of Zerg. Meanwhile, in New Great Ia, Su Yan was sitting in front of the holographic desk at the research center, her eyes highly focused, her fingertips typing away rapidly. The scientific research documents sent back from the other world were gradually being opened by her. When she saw the file named Experimental Lizzie Battle Armor System, her pupils suddenly shrank. They actually built a complete theoretical system for battle armor. She quickly skimmed through hundreds of pages of content, her racing heartbeat almost drowning out everything else. Computing power, armor material mechanics, hydraulic fibers, neural synchronization interfaces, it's all here! Su-yan couldn't help but shoot up from her seat, breathing heavily. The only bottleneck is energy. The energy density is too low. Battle armor can only sustain combat for 5 minutes. The next second, she slammed her hands on the desk and burst into laughter. That's perfect! This is exactly our specialty! Her eyes burned with a long-lost fanaticism. If we use profound ashstone and twin blue whale to build a microfusion reactor core, combined with the quantum energy conducting properties of the spirit carbon mother ore, their battle armor will no longer be a 5-minute toy, but steel giants capable of actual combat. She jotted down her ideas on the holographic screen, while muttering to herself, they have the structure. We have the energy source. They have the combat system. We have the materials. When the technological streams of our two worlds merge, the era of true battle armor will begin. On the screen, the technologies of the two civilizations were laid out side by side, overlapping step by step, complementing each other. A new annotation appeared right in the center. Cross-World Joint Project, Lia's Mystic Radiance. Codename, Dual World Joint Battle Armor Project. Su-yan slowly looked up, a blue light flashing in her eyes. For them to reach this point, it wasn't just relying on intellect, but an indomitable will even when facing extinction. She flipped through the documents and saw the subtitle of the research report from the Zerg-plagued Great Jia, Titanium Astral Alloy, a super metal with 10 times the strength and toughness of tungsten steel, capable of maintaining its properties in extreme cold. Su-yan softly read, Titanium Astral Alloy. Her face revealed genuine admiration. No wonder they could support a battle armor system. The disaster of this world has also forged their own unique miracle. At the same time, the countdown on my end restarted. The cursor on my retina blinked with a cold blue light. Countdown, 5 years. I took a deep breath, already well aware in my heart that what we were facing this time wasn't just a simple expedition, but a rescue mission. In the Central Command's operations room, the atmosphere was unprecedentedly tense. Under the direction of Yu Guodong, Xia Tianyao, Wan Yuxiang, and the others jointly passed a resolution. The official directive was issued. During my next transmigration, we would urgently transport strategic supplies to the Zerg-plagued dimension, focusing primarily on profound ash stone, twin blue whale, and spirit carbon mother ore, prioritizing energy and defense support. The transport route for the construction of the Lop Nur base had also been cleared. Military transport trucks pierced through the night, their cargo holds packed with mineral crystals from the zombie world. That was the last ray of hope for human civilization. The engineers chatted animatedly while loading the cargo. I heard this stuff can power reactors and even be used to build battle armor. The security clearance is at the absolute highest. Ask too many questions and you'll be writing a self-reflection report. Man, if it's really for building battle armor, then it's totally worth it. At the same time, Great Xia's key research institutes operating at peak efficiency successively received a batch of document packages from a top-secret national project. The title of the documents clearly stated, Li's Battle Armor Engineering System, Joint Experimental Version. However, none of the documents mentioned its origin. At the High Energy Mechanical Research Institute of the University of Agricultural Sciences, Shen Mingjie, a leading authority and academician in the field of robotics, was sitting at his lab bench, flipping through the hundreds of pages of documents. At first, he was just casually skimming through, but when he saw the pages, detailing hydraulic fiber linkages, rhythmic neural synchronization feedback, and the control system design blueprints, he was completely stunned. He muttered to himself, pushing up his reading glasses, his fingertips trembling slightly. This theoretical framework is far too advanced. It completely overturns our current thinking. On electromechanical control. When he saw the core armor material on the last page, which was titanium astral alloy, his brows furrowed even tighter. Titanium astral alloy, we've never even heard of this stuff. This kind of material can't just be a theoretical fiction. He continued flipping through the rest, discovering that the entire document was incredibly rigorous, without a single flaw. Even if the core material was still unverified, the overall system was highly scientific and logical. He pondered for a moment and suddenly had an epiphany. The flaw in the power system is the only weakness of this design. But if we use profound ash stone, twin blue whale, and spirit carbon mother ore to compensate for the energy density, it's completely feasible. It's an absolutely flawless match. Right after, a meaningful smile appeared on his face. Did the higher-ups actually dig up alien technology from the dark side of the moon? With that, he immediately assembled his team and got to work. Project Lee's battle armor officially enters full-scale research as of right now. Within 3 days, we must submit the first finalized power scheme. Scenes similar to Shen Mingjie's were playing out all across the country. At military factories, wave after wave of outstanding talents joined the project to perfect the Lee's battle armor, working day and night to make breakthroughs, and all the feedback on their research results and breakthroughs would be immediately compiled and sent straight to Su Yan. Su Yan stood before the glass corridor of the Scientific Research Center, looking at the glittering city lights outside the window, the corners of her mouth curling up slightly. The technologies of two worlds were gradually intertwining. She muttered softly, "The true dawn of steel for Project Lee's has begun." The critical moment for transmigration had finally arrived. The research institute in the early morning was still shrouded in a thin mist. Shen Mingjie had just finished a night of calculations and was about to go brew a cup of tea when hurried footsteps echoed outside his door. Several people in dark trench coats, agents from the security bureau wearing custom badges, pushed the door open and walked in. The man leading them had a stern expression, but his tone was exceptionally respectful. "Dr. Shen, your research on battle armor control and the field of human-machine integration is unsurpassed in the entire country. Right now, the nation has an extremely critical mission that requires you to step up and lead the team. But I must make it clear up front, this mission has an incredibly high level of danger and secrecy. Once you accept it, you may have to disappear from the outside world for a long time." Shen Mingjie was slightly taken aback. From his youth to his old age, he had always yearned to participate in era-defining projects like this. At this moment, he understood this was exactly that opportunity. He didn't hesitate at all. The moment he put pen to paper to sign the non-disclosure agreement, a wave of emotion swelled in his heart. The sound of the pen tip gliding across the paper felt like the declaration of a turning point in destiny. Brought into a classified meeting room, the head of the Security Bureau's Special Investigation Team handed him a top-secret document. After Shen Mingjie opened it, the very first line left him completely dumbfounded. Project Origin, Great Xia in Another World. Objective, Lai's Battle Armor Cooperative Plan. Another world he couldn't help but repeat, his voice trembling slightly. The document detailed intel on the Zerg-plagued world, the transmigration plan, and the progress of technological integration between both sides. As each page was turned, Shen Mingjie's shock gradually turned into fanaticism. So that was it. This Lee's battle armor system didn't just appear out of thin air, but was forged by another great Xi, risking everything in the face of adversity. The head of the Security Bureau nodded. Exactly. Right now, they are plunged into a Zerg crisis. The leadership has decided to send a technical team, with you serving as one of the directors, to transmigrate alongside Xiao Chen and head to the Great Xia in the Zerg-plagued dimension for joint research and development of the battle armor system. Shen Mingjie remained silent for a few seconds. He looked at the red document folder, stamped with the official seal of Great Xia, and a long-lost fire of passion surged in his heart. To be able, in his remaining years, to witness the technologies of two worlds marching forward together. This was the honor of a lifetime. He straightened his back, his gaze resolute. That afternoon, a military helicopter landed at his research institute. On the rooftop, the downdraft from the rotors whipped his white hair around. He looked back at the building, the laboratory he had been attached to for decades, and softly said, "Old friends, this time, I'm going to build a dream somewhere much further away." Not long after, he arrived at the military airfield, then boarded a military transport plane, bound for the Lop Nur base. The night at the Lop Nur base was eerily quiet. The starry sky was vast and endless. The wind carried dust and sand from the distant testing grounds, bringing with it a dry, biting chill. I walked through the courtyard, my footsteps slow, my mind heavy with thoughts. The transmigration countdown had entered its final stage, but my heart didn't feel relieved in the slightest. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from behind. "You look like you've got a lot on your mind." I turned around. It was Qin Xinyu. She was still wearing her white lab coat, her long hair fluttering gently in the night wind. I let out a bitter smile. Yeah, the last world was a zombie world. Even though danger lurked everywhere, I could still handle that kind of despair. But this time is different. I looked up at the night sky, the twinkling starlight reflecting in my eyes. That place is a great Shia, exactly like ours. Same language, same bloodline, same flag. Seeing them being swallowed up by the Zerg world, it really breaks my heart. I paused for a moment, my voice dropping lower. Suyan was right. If the Zerg are truly an interstellar intelligent species, then no matter how hard we try, it might just be a drop in the bucket. Maybe this time, what we're facing is something fundamentally unbeatable. The wind swept past in silence, kicking up the sand beneath our feet. My tone carried a suppressed exhaustion. Xinyu remained silent. She quietly looked at me for a moment before softly saying, "It's not pointless." I looked up into her eyes. Xinyu's eyes were incredibly bright, like the most steadfast stars in the night sky. Man can conquer nature isn't just an empty slogan. Even if the final outcome is failure, the very process of trying carries meaning in itself. She smiled faintly. Besides, since they share the same roots and origins as us, they will definitely inherit our will. Relentless self-improvement and never bowing down. That's something carved deep into our bones. I was stunned for a few seconds, before the corners of my mouth finally curled into a long-lost smile. You're right. No matter how dark the road ahead is, we should be that guiding light. At the very least, to let them see that there is still another great Shia in another world, fighting right alongside them. Qin Xinyu gave a slight nod. The wind brushed through her hair. In that moment, her smile was so warm. The time for transmigration was drawing closer by the second. Inside the isolation chamber, everything had entered the final countdown phase. The lights in the chamber cast a cold white glow. The air was thick with a suffocating tension. That made it feel like your blood vessels were about to burst. I glanced at the countdown on my retina. Those numbers, reflecting in the blue light, seemed to beat in sync with my heart. All personnel, enter standby mode. Following the issued command, a voice rang out, ironclad and authoritative. Team Battle Tiger, Team Blazing Flame, Team Thunderbolt, 3 of Great Shia's strongest special task forces, are now fully assembled. On the surface of every member's armor, tactical identification lights blinked. Their powered exoskeletons emitted a low, humming engine noise. Dozens of Type 100 main battle tanks, they lined up in perfect formation in the bay's passageway. Cannons aimed forward, ready to fire the moment they crossed over. The heavy, dull grinding of tank treads against the floor was like the beat of war drums echoing from deep underground. As for the science team, dozens of researchers led by Suyan and Shen Mingjie had also finished their deployment. Their mission, to coordinate with the Daxia researchers in the Chongyuan world and support the future research and development of the combat mechs. Suyan looked at my calm expression and took a deep breath. This time, we're not just carrying hope, but the future itself. Shen Mingji gently pushed up his glasses, his face intensely focused on the Lees. The combat mech project is about to truly begin. I looked around at everyone and said slowly, "Everyone? This time, we are not just explorers. We are envoys of Daxia. Let the technology of 2 worlds stand side by side so that the flame of humanity will never be extinguished by any disaster." Meanwhile, in the Chongyuan world, Ariotine, a military base on the outskirts, was locked in a desperate battle. The swarm, a black tsunami, surged from the horizon, so dense it blotted out the sky. Yue Weifang stood on the front line, his armor already stained black with insect blood. "Fire zones 1 and 2, all companies, open fire. Don't let those flying bugs get any closer, battalion commander. The bug's assault is too fierce. The comrades can't hold on much longer." A soldier covered in wounds rushed forward, his voice hoarse. Yue Weifang gritted his teeth and roared, "Even if you can't hold on, you will hold the line. Even if there's only 1 man left in this base, we will not let it fall into the hands of the swarm. Remember what Xiao Shen said, they will return through here." He suddenly raised his assault rifle, shouting to all his troops, "Comrades, as long as we stand, the base stands! As long as we stand, the base stands!" The endless roar of the soldiers mingled with the thunder of cannons, forming a wall of flesh and blood, the final bastion against the ferocious tide. The sky was stained crimson by the flames of war. Insect limbs and shrapnel intertwined, creating a hellish landscape. Meanwhile, on the other side, inside the underground isolation bay at the Luobupo base, the final seconds of the countdown ticked away, initiating jump. The portal is opening. A swirling vortex of blue-white energy suddenly lit up the night sky. Like a brilliant star descending, that blinding light illuminated the entire Luobupo base as if it were day. Fierce energy storms swept across the ground. Soldiers on the battlefield instinctively raised their hands to shield their faces. Their faces showed a mixture of shock and irrepressible excitement. Countdown initiated. The announcement echoed through the command hall. "Portal stable, you may proceed. Thunder Squad, move out!" A fierce roar erupted as the 16-man squad piloted their war machines forward, followed by Tiger Squad and Flame Squad. The roaring war vehicles charged into the Gate of Light. Right behind them was me, inside my own combat vehicle. Suyan, Shen Mingjie, and the core members of the research team followed, with heavy transport trucks entering in a single file line behind them. The truck beds were loaded with crates of Xuanhui stone, Shuanglan spar, and spirit coal. This was their hope for crossing into the other world. The waves of blue-white energy were now nearing their limit. Everyone understood. Every second was a race against time. Hurry! 30 seconds left. The tail lights of the last transport vehicle vanished into the wormhole of light. The portal's energy began to destabilize, rippling like the surface of water. Final countdown. 10, 9, 8, 8. The light began to shrink, the air filled with a shuddering groan. Then the portal abruptly froze, leaving only the vast sound of the wind and the hot, scattered energy cells on the ground. The base fell into a brief silence. Everyone held their breath, staring at the empty space where the light had vanished. From a distant fortification, the Western Theater commander, Wan Wuxiang, watched with eyes as deep and hard as steel. He slowly removed his military cap, murmuring, "You must all return safely." "The Type 100 main battle tanks!" roared out of the portal. Boom, boom, boom. The deafening sound of cannon fire. Boom. The deafening sound of cannon fire. Almost simultaneously, the area was engulfed. The air grew thick with the smell of scorched metal. The surrounding ground was torn apart by the force of the explosions. Countless insects shrieked, writhing in the flames. A voice crackled, urgently over the comms. "Watch your six. This side is under heavy attack by the swarm. We're providing support to maintain the defensive line then." A hoarse but steely voice cut through the channel. "You're finally here." It was the commander of the White Rainbow Battalion, Yue Weifeng. I looked up and saw him on the front line, Yue Weifeng, wearing a flak jacket stained black with blood and mud. His eyes were as steady as cold steel. He led the few dozen surviving soldiers holding the very edge of the defensive line. Nearly every one of them was wounded. Some had hastily wrapped bandages to stop the bleeding, but were still reloading their weapons. One man gripped a machine gun with one hand, his other arm an empty sleeve wrapped in white gauze. My heart clenched. I understood then that the reason these men were fighting to the death to hold this base wasn't for victory. It was to clear a safe landing zone for us. "All units prepare to provide support. Lay down covering fire on the front line," Yue Weifeng roared. Dozens of Type 100 tanks adjusted their cannons in unison. Fire control system locking on targets. The firepower was immense. The next second, dozens of 120mm armor-piercing rounds left their barrels at once, like a meteor shower tearing through the sky, and slammed directly into the center of the swarm's nest. A massive shock wave kicked up a cloud of dust that blotted out the sky. Mountainous swarms of insects shrieked in a sea of fire. Limbs and carapaces flew everywhere. Main cannons reloaded. "Continue firing." The cannons thundered again and again. Serpents of fire from the machine guns swept across the field. Shell casings rained down. In just 10 short minutes, the defensive line was stabilized. The swarm's nest disintegrated in the inferno. Countless insect corpses piled up like mountains. Yue Weifeng gasped for breath, his eyes fixed on the rows of heavy tanks. His gaze was filled with shock and gratitude. Thank God we finally held them off. After the battle subsided, Yue Weifeng came to meet us in person. The transport trucks were filled with essential supplies. He took a deep breath. Commander Zhang has given the order. Yue Weifeng said solemnly. After you arrived, you are to follow me immediately to Military Base 001. That is Daxia's core defensive line against the Chongyun wave. It's also where the command headquarters is located. We must get there to reinforce it at once. The convoy's tread started rolling again, crushing the scorched black earth as they moved forward. The desolate wind carried the stench of blood, but also the breath of hope. On the way, I looked out at the ruins illuminated by artillery fire. My voice was calm but firm. Chief, we can stay for 5 days. After 5 days, we'll return to prepare more resources. Then we'll come back to reinforce you. Yue Weifeng nodded, a tired but sincere smile on his face. It's good to have you here. After that, the mighty convoy advanced toward Military Base 001. The air along the way was thick with the smell of gunpowder. The distant sky was intermittently lit by the light of explosions. At the same time, inside the central command tower of Military Base 001, red warning lights flashed incessantly. Xia Haorui, in a general's uniform, stood before a massive holographic sand table. His expression was extremely grave. On the sand table, the swarm's attack was spreading from the southeast, approaching like a tide. Just then, a communications officer ran up. Report, we have confirmed a successful connection. They have entered this plane and are heading toward our base. Xia Haorui nodded. A faint light flickered in his eyes. According to the intel we received, they have 5 days at most. Then within these 5 days, everything that can be exchanged and all collaborative technologies must be fully integrated. The lead scientific expert beside him, Wang Zhayuan, immediately stood up. Organize the teams. Begin analysis of the materials they've brought. A few minutes after the technical documents for the Li's combat mech system appeared on the screen, the entire research lab fell silent for a few seconds. Then it erupted in a near-frenzied cheer. This is the probe's energy core. And the thermal stability equation, the core composition of Shuanglan spar and Xuanhui stone. Wang Zhiyuan's hands were trembling. He nearly shouted at his assistants. Incredible. This is the missing link we needed. In recent days, the continuous attacks from the swarm had completely disrupted the industrial supply chain. Key materials were scarce, energy was insufficient, and experiments were halted. Their research had nearly reached a dead end. And now, the materials from the other world's Daxia were nothing short of a godsend. A timely rain in a drought. Immediately assemble all combat mech research teams, incorporate the new material theory into the Li's combat mech's reactor model. The fatigue on Wang Zhiyuan's face was wiped clean away, replaced by a long-lost passion. He clenched his fists, his eyes blazing. If this verification test is successful, we can make the Li's combat mech truly stand. Outside the window, the first light of dawn was breaking. The wind whipped the flag, and on its surface, that familiar red flame fluttered in the light. Xia Haorui looked at the flag and the rank on his shoulder. Whether in this world or theirs, Daxia had never bowed to fate. Not long after, I passed through multiple layers of defense, and finally arrived at Military Base 001. This base sat on the border between desert and steel. Anti-aircraft guns, autocannons, and automated machine guns stood shoulder to shoulder. In the sky, patrol drones occasionally streaked past. And at the main gate of the base was Xia Haorui wearing his combat command cloak, along with Wang Zhiyuan, whose hair was white but whose spirit was sharp. The doctor had been waiting personally for a long time. As soon as I got out of the vehicle, I saw eyes that had weathered the storms of war, weary, yet filled with fierce hope. Su Yan and Shen Mingji stepped forward and saluted. Dr. Wang Zhiyuan, we've brought the supplies and samples you urgently need. Please, take a look, Su Yan said, gesturing toward the transport truck behind them. The truck's cargo bay slowly opened. Neatly stacked blocks of Xuanhui stone, along with mineral samples of Shuanglan, spar, and spirit coal. The blue-white hue and the tri-colored silver mineral crystals shimmered under the lights like the beating heart of human civilization. Wang Zhiyuan froze. Then he strode forward. His trembling hands reached out to touch the Xuanhui stone. This energy signature, it's astounding. I can't believe such a creation exists in this world. He turned and gripped Su Yan and Shen Mingji's hands tightly, his eyes filled with emotion and gratitude. What you've brought us is hope. He spoke, almost unable to wait any longer. Take me to the lab. We'll begin testing the energy reactions immediately. There's no time. We can't waste a single second. Su Yan, Shen Mingjie, and the research team headed to the research area. The first joint research project spanning 2 worlds had begun. Meanwhile, Zheng Jie and I were led by Xiahao Rui to a rest area behind the command center. Along the way, soldiers hurried past. The large screens in the command center flickered continuously with red alert zones. The swarm's attack vectors covered nearly the entire coastal golden boundary line. The battle situation was tense. Xiahao Rui lowered his voice as he walked. "Conditions are a bit rough. Please forgive me," I smiled and shook my head. "You're too polite, Commander. We are all practical people. Formality doesn't matter." The two looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with unwavering determination. Xiahao Rui nodded. His tone became solemn. "Thank you for your cross-world support." He paused for a moment and looked outside. At the horizon, dyed red by the smoke and fire of war. His voice deepened, but it exuded a convincing strength. "What you brought us might not just be supplies, but more importantly, it makes us believe that in this war against the insectoids, we still have hope." I looked at him quietly and slowly spoke. "No matter which world it is, our great Xia will never bow to despair." On the other side, inside the main experimental cabin of Military Base 001, the lights were as bright as day. 3 people gathered around the 3D holographic projection table in the center. In the 3D holographic projection, a 15-meter-tall Lise combat mecha was slowly rotating. Blue energy pulses flashed in its chest cavity, like an artificial heart. Su-Yan pointed at the energy cabin structure on the mecha's chest. Her voice was urgent and passionate. "Your Lise combat mecha structure is highly advanced, but the energy supply rate is unstable. In the environment of the Calamity World, this kind of short-term endurance absolutely cannot hold up on the front lines. If we introduce the condensation flow layer of the Shuanglan Jing, combined with the transmission reaction of the Xuanhui Stone, the energy efficiency can be increased by at least 4 times. Shen Mingjai quickly set up the model on the virtual terminal. As a result, amidst the flashing lines of code, the energy curve in the model instantly skyrocketed. "Look, this design can maintain a stable output. There won't be any stalling caused by energy fluctuations." Dr. Wang Jiwan watched the two of them operate. He looked as if he had grown 20 years younger. He slammed his hand on the table. "Awesome! This is absolutely incredible. So the quantum condensation effect of the Shuanglanjing can replace our original convergence pipelines. Before, we used astral titanium alloy to forcefully withstand the pressure, which resulted in severe energy consumption. Now, this line of thinking perfectly makes up for it." Su-Yan spoke while operating the terminal. "Your astral titanium alloy is a miracle. High metal strength, excellent ductility. I want to coat its surface with a layer of Lingtin mother or nanofilm. This way, it can not only improve electrical conductivity, but also achieve self-healing capabilities for combat stats." Wang Jiwan's breathing became heavy. His eyes burned brightly. If this can really be achieved, then it's not just a simple combat mecha anymore. It's a weapon of war with the characteristics of a living organism. Shen Mingji smiled. He pushed up his glasses. "We've always been pursuing this goal." The 3 looked at each other and smiled. Immediately after, they reached out their hands at the same time and pressed the confirmation button for the energy system fusion test. The next second, the lights in the entire laboratory went out in an instant. The central reactor model flared with a blinding blue light. Ring after ring, energy ripples spread along the model's shell. The monitoring screen showed the energy output rising steadily. Wang Jiwan clenched his fists. His voice trembled. "The power unit fusion is a success." Su-Yan smiled gently. "Starting today, the Lise combat mecha truly has a heart." With the successful completion of the model verification, the entire industrial park of Military Base 001 fully awakened. The warning lights in the workshops lit up one after another. The robotic arms began to operate. Blazing golden light erupted from the smelting furnaces. The air was thick with the smell of high-temperature molten metal. The Lise combat mecha prototype officially started production. The 15-meter-tall giant steel machine inside the workshop finally stepped out of the blueprints and projections, moving towards its birth in reality. Over the past few months, the core energy system of the Lise combat mecha had always been the biggest bottleneck. The unstable energy source and the low efficiency of the reactor forced the prototype to be stalled for a long time, lying dormant on the production line. Now, with the appearance of the Xuanhui Stone, Shuanglan Jing, and the Lingtan Mother or 3 miraculous materials, Su-Yan and Wang Jiwan joined forces to break through the final barrier. The energy pulse core started up stably. This meant that the laser combat mecha could finally truly move. During a break in the experiment, Su Yan and Wang Jiyuan walked side by side along the walkway of the workshop, echoing with the roar of machinery. The sound of clashing steel echoed from all around. The skeleton of the semi-finished combat mecha was slowly rising from underground. Su Yan looked at that colossal figure. Her voice carried sincere respect. Your astral titanium alloy is truly an unbelievable material. The strength is astonishing. It can withstand energy shocks while ensuring toughness. To be honest, we absolutely cannot manufacture this kind of metal on our end. When we return, can we take some samples with us? Wang Jiyuan froze for a moment, then immediately smiled and said, "Of course, that's not a problem. Although the astral titanium alloy here is extremely rare, compared to the energy technology you've provided, this little bit is nothing." Su Yan nodded. Her voice was gentle. "Don't worry, we won't take much. You still have to fight against the insectoids. We just need a few samples for research. Wait until the calamity is pacified. Then our great Xia will officially sign a long-term cooperation agreement." Hearing the words calamity is pacified, Wang Jiyuan fell silent. Outside the workshop, the distant horizon was dyed red by artillery fire. Every flash of light represented another battle and another wave of sacrifices. After a while, he slowly reached out his hand and firmly grasped Su Yan's hand. "Then let's wait for the day we pacify the calamity world." Su Yan smiled. She also solemnly replied to him, "Definitely." As the assembly of the laser combat mecha entered its final stage, boom-boom deafening explosions echoed from dozens of kilometers away from the base. The alarm sirens instantly blared throughout Base 001. All warning lights simultaneously turned red. The insectoids had launched a new wave of attacks. The target was the Southeast Defense Zone. Urgent reports rang out on the Defense Zone's communication channel. The swarm's numbers are massive. Suspected appearance of a new heavy armored variant, requesting backup. Inside the command hall, Xia Haorui's face darkened. He suddenly stood up. "The defense situation is dire," the chief of staff reported in a deep voice. "Understood. The third defense line is being suppressed. It's expected to fall in 10 minutes. At the same time, another urgent message came from the research sector. Wang Jiyuan's voice clearly revealed his excitement and tension. "Reporting to the commander. In 10 minutes, the Lee's combat mecha prototype can be activated. The stability rate of the energy core has met the standard. We can head to the battlefield to verify its actual combat performance." Xia Haorui pondered for a few seconds, then he decisively issued the order. "All right, inform the front lines that reinforcements will arrive in 20 minutes. Tell them they must defend the position to the death. They must hold the line for these 20 minutes at all costs." He turned to look at the combat commander. "The reserve team moves out immediately. Provide full fire support. No matter what, we cannot lose the defense line." The combat personnel sprang into action immediately. Tanks and armored vehicles roared out of the garages. The ground was shaking. The swirling dust was illuminated by the base's protective shields, reflecting faint rays of light. In the research sector, Wang Jiyuan, Su Yan, and Shen Mingji worked almost non-stop. The blue light pulse of the energy core became increasingly stable. The final layer of Lingtan Mother Ore film on the mesh's shell was undergoing nano-level fusion. Completion rate 98%. Energy cabin temperature control is stable. The neural synchronization system is finally connected, along with a crisp notification sound. The Lee's combat mecha prototype system is ready. Wang Jiyuan breathed a sigh of relief. He almost collapsed into his chair. He raised his head, looking at the 15-meter-tall steel giant in front of him. It can finally move. Su Yan didn't waste any time. She directly gave the order. "Notify command, the combat mecha is ready to deploy." From the command center came Xia Haorui's steady voice. "Understood. Lai's combat mecha prototype, piloted personally by Yue Weifeng. Target the southeast route." Mission code, Dawn Sortie. This is the mecha's first actual combat, and the first time facing the insectoids head-on. In an instant, the entire base was immersed in an atmosphere of excitement. Countless soldiers stopped in their tracks, looking towards the towering hangar in the distance. There, the Lee's combat mecha stood tall and imposing. Blue energy streams flashed within its chest, as if the last true hope had opened its eyes. After receiving the order, Yue Weifeng immediately rushed to the deployment zone. As the heavy alloy blast doors slowly opened, an oppressive roar hit him right in the face. He saw the 15-meter-tall Lee's combat mecha standing majestically in the brightly lit hangar. Blue-white energy veins ran along the gaps in its armor, circulating endlessly. Yue Feng's breathing involuntarily quickened. Even though he was a veteran of 100 battles, at this moment he was too shocked to speak. "This is the Li's combat Misha." Wan Zhuan stepped into the cockpit, unable to hide his pride and emotion. It uses an astral titanium alloy main skeleton. The outer shell is a mother ore carbon film, extremely high defense and toughness. The core power source is a new generation nuclear reactor. In high-intensity combat conditions, it can still operate continuously for a whole week. He paused for a moment, then continued his introduction. The weapon system is a dual setup. The main weapons are a high-energy laser cannon and a magnetic railgun. For close combat, it's equipped with a giant, astral titanium axe. It can cleave through heavy armor in a single strike. In addition, the mecha has short-term hovering and high-mobility leaping capabilities, but it temporarily lacks long-distance flight functions. It belongs to the ground assault class. Yue Weifeng listened intently. His eyes were resolute. "Understood. I've synced the system data. I'm heading out." Wan Jiwan nodded. "Good luck, Knight of Li's." As the cockpit closed, the light from the Lize combat Meisha's eyes flared up. A blinding blue light illuminated the entire hangar. Energy system activated. Neural synchronization rate 98%. All weapon modules unlocked. Lize combat mecha Yue Weifeng moving out, accompanied by heavy footsteps. The Lize combat mecha took its first steps. Every step shook the ground like an earthquake, kicking up clouds of dust into the sky. Meanwhile, at the control center, Suyan, Shen Mingjie, and Wan Jiwan all had their eyes glued to the screen. Streams of data danced wildly on the projection screen. Energy output curve, the mecha's load ratio, the stability coefficient, everything was being monitored. Suyan said in a deep voice, "Start recording actual combat data. Observe the entire process and synchronize feedback." Shen Mingjie smiled faintly. "Our child has finally gone to the battlefield." Wan Zhiyuan clenched his fists. His eyes were radiant. After this battle, the Liaze combat mecha will no longer be just an experimental subject. It will become humanity's resistance. The first sharp blade against the calamity world. At the defense line, the horizon burned with crimson clouds, and artillery fire tore through the night. The air was thick with the stench of burnt metal and gunpowder. The battlefield was littered with burning wreckage and echoed with the roars of the charge. The reinforcements from Military Base 001 had arrived 5 minutes ago, but the situation was still incredibly grim. The swarm attacked wave after wave, surging ferociously from the valleys and surface fissures. Those monsters' entire bodies were covered in metallic shells. The heavy armored insectoids were withstanding the dense firepower, pressing closer to the defense line step by step. Fire at full force. If we can't stop them, suppress them with howitzers. Report, we only have 30% of our ammo left. Damn it, that thing took a direct hit from a 155mm shell and can still move. Every roar that echoed seemed to crack their morale a little more. The company commander's face was covered in dirt. His voice was hoarse, but he still roared. "I only have one thing to say. As long as we breathe, the position stands. Absolutely no retreating." He turned around and raised his assault rifle, aiming at the pitch-black swarm in front of him, firing several shots in a row. "Attention, everyone! Prioritize attacking the joints of their heavy armor. That's their weak point." A massive explosion sent dirt and dust flying. The frontline combat trench was crushed by the swarm. A tank was flipped into the air by a colossal monster. The defense line was about to be breached. The company commander pressed the comms button on his shoulder hard. "Report to base, we can still hold the line," because right at that moment, the pincer of an armored insectoid suddenly pierced through a chest. The entire position was shaking. The company commander gritted his teeth. Using the last ounce of his strength, he shoved an anti-tank grenade into the monster's mouth. A massive explosion rang out. The violent blast instantly blew away the surrounding soldiers. But in the light of that explosion, they still saw a new wave of the swarm surging forward once again. The soldiers stood back to back, their faces covered in blood, facing the line between life and death. "Hold the formation to the death. We're almost out of ammo, it's fine. We still have bayonets." At that moment, in the sky over the southeast sector, only a soul-stirring scene of a fight to the death remained. Every inch of land paid for in blood. As long as we breathe, the position stands, right at the defense zone. At the very moment they were about to be completely swallowed by the swarm, a deep, rumbling roar suddenly echoed through the sky. It was the sound of air being compressed and forcefully torn apart. Everyone instinctively looked up, only to see a blinding blue-white beam of light descending from the horizon. Accompanied by an earth-shattering crash, a 15-meter-tall colossal steel figure slammed down right in the middle of the battlefield. The Lee's combat mecha. It's the prototype. It's our combat mecha. The soldiers could hardly believe their eyes. The surface of the giant machine's body shimmered with energy. The light from the reactor in its chest flared like a heartbeat. The ground shook violently the moment it landed. The surging shock waves of dust blew away rows of insectoids in front of it. Inside the cockpit, Yue Weifeng gripped the control sticks tightly. His voice was deep and full of authority. "Rest easy, reinforcements have arrived." As soon as he finished speaking, the Lee's combat mecha raised its right arm. The mechanical pressurization system erupted in an instant. Locking onto target, medium-armored insectoid, the giant astral titanium axe, carrying terrifying energy, smashed straight down from midair. The hard outer shell of the medium-armored insectoid was cleaved in half with a single strike. The giant axe swung back in a horizontal slash. The air was torn apart, creating sonic booms. Dozens of insectoids were instantly crushed to pieces. Immediately after, the shoulder turrets unlocked. The dual-barrel high-energy laser cannons activated. Aiming at the dense cluster of insectoids, energy converged and fired. A blinding white beam of light tore through the battlefield. The swarm was melted in an instant by the extreme heat, leaving behind scorched earth and billowing smoke. Yue Weifeng, like a true warrior, piloted the mecha, ignited its foot thrusters, and roared with fury. "Bring it on! Keep coming to your deaths!" The Lee's combat mecha transformed into a blue-white tornado, the giant axe dancing wildly in midair. Like a colossal meat grinder roaring and exploding, the clashing metal crushed the enemy. The swarm's tidal wave offensive was completely turned around. The soldiers on the battlefield were all stunned in amazement. "That's our great Shia's combat mecha. My god, this is humanity's true shield," Lee's combat mecha. "Well done." With the addition of the Lee's combat mecha, the southeast defense line finally held its ground. The swarm was heavily suppressed. Hope was rekindled on the battlefield. At the same time, on the central screen of Base 001's command center, the live feed of the Lee's combat mecha flashed continuously. The beams from the high-energy weapons tore through the swarm. The firelight from the explosions reflected on everyone's faces. Su Yan, Shen Mingjie, and Wan Jieyuan all held their breath. After staring intently for a while, Shen Mingjie couldn't help but smile. This combat power is too strong. As long as we provide enough energy, the Lee's combat mecha is humanity's final bastion against the insectoids. As long as it can be mass-produced, our civilization will be safe. Wan Jieyuan didn't think so. He took off his glasses. He let out a sigh with a heavy expression. If it were peacetime, Great Xia has a complete industrial system. Mass-producing the Lee's combat mecha naturally wouldn't be a problem. But right now, he looked at the global tactical map on the wall. The vast red areas represented the swarm's sphere of influence. It has nearly devoured the entire world. After the cataclysm broke out, the global supply chain collapsed early on. Entire continents have fallen, leaving only a few pockets of resistance barely hanging on. Other nations have been completely wiped out across the entire planet. Only our great Xia is still struggling to hold on. But even so, our combat strength is weakening by the day. Resources are scarce, transportation is disrupted, and infrastructure has been destroyed. We can barely even maintain our most basic production lines, let alone mass-produce combat mechs. As he spoke, his voice grew heavy. More importantly, the Lee's combat mechs require pilots with high-intensity neural synchronization compatibility. They must have an unyielding will, a stable mind, and lightning-fast reflexes. But with war raging everywhere, we have no way to systematically screen for them. Su Yan and Shen Mingjie exchanged a look, then nodded. Su Yan said in a low voice, "If it's a supply chain issue, once the portal can be sustained for longer periods, we can help you manufacture them directly. Core components, power units, armor modules, we can provide them all." Shen Mingjie added, "As for the neural synchronization pilots, we can also help with the screening process. We'll select those with indomitable wills who do not fear sacrifice and send them to your world to become true mech knights." Wang Jiwan suddenly looked up, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. You're really willing to help us? Suyan smiled, patting his shoulder. We are all people of great Xia. It doesn't matter which world we're from. Shen Mingjie also nodded and said, We don't just want to help you survive. We want to work together to put a definitive end to this cataclysm. Wang Jiwan was so moved he was at a loss for words. Then we're counting on all of you. In the end, Suyan, Shen Mingjie, and Wang Jiyuan pulled an all-nighter, diving into a new technical breakthrough. The lights in the lab burned brightly through the long night. They focused on the Li's combat mech and the shortcomings it had revealed on the battlefield. Joint efficiency, neural latency, and thermal energy recovery were meticulously discussed, point by point. They ran constant simulations. Every parameter adjustment sparked a fiery debate, and every finalized plan felt like a life-or-death gamble. Tapping at the terminal keyboard, Suyan said, The main control server's response rate needs to be increased by another 15%, or we'll be at a disadvantage in close combat. Shen Mingjie frowned and countered, That'll cause too much energy drain. The heat dissipation system won't be able to keep up. Wang Jiyuan suddenly interjected, What if we try a dual-layer neural feedback system? We can use the Spirit Mother ore as a shunting conductive layer. It would be both fast and stable. The three of them practically pounded the table as they argued, working tirelessly through the night. By dawn, a new model of the Li's combat mech had emerged, gradually taking shape in the holographic projection. Faster, more stable, and more powerful. At the same time, Wang Jiwan presented a thick set of blueprints. These are the designs for the device we use to screen for neural synchronization pilots. After you return, you can use these to build your own and select talented individuals who can fully synchronize with the mech's neural interface. Suyan nodded solemnly, accepting the blueprints. Don't worry, we'll begin the screening process immediately. Meanwhile, inside the base's command hall, I was standing beside the tactical sand table alongside the Supreme Commander of this world's great Xia Central Command, the Supreme Commander, General Xia Harui. The air around us was thick with urgency, a constant chorus of alarms and communications. Technically, I shouldn't have been present at such a high-level meeting, but Xia Harui had insisted I stay. He's our source of hope, Xia Harui had said. The one who holds the key to the portal deserves to hear our march to war. Jiangqiang Army Group, hold the southeastern defensive line. Dimai Army Group, lock down the northwestern valley. The main force of the swarm is gathering there. On the giant electronic map, red dots were spreading like a tide. Every confirmation meant another defensive line was engulfed in flames. I stood aside, watching in silence, and an indescribable weight settling in my heart. When the meeting ended, I took a step forward. General Xia, if the situation becomes unsalvageable, you can use the portal to evacuate some of your people to our side. It's safe over there. We can arrange for their settlement. Xia Haorui paused for a moment, then smiled. It was a smile without a trace of hesitation, only calm and pride. I understand your good intentions, but this is our land to defend. We cannot shirk that responsibility. If we abandon our homeland just to survive, then are we still worthy of being called people of great Xia? He paused for a beat, his voice low but deeply resonant. The emperor guards the nation's gate. The king dies for his country. If the day comes when we truly cannot hold on, please save a corner in your museums for the great Xia of our world. Let it be an eternal mark of our glory. In that moment, I was stunned. What I saw was not a general, not a commander, but the final backbone of an entire world. Time passed in a flash. Over the next few days, Yue Weifeng barely slept a wink. The Li's combat mech he piloted became a storm sweeping across the battlefield. No matter how ferocious the swarm was, wherever the mech appeared, it cut through them like a hot knife through butter. One man, one mech, one city, one battle. Every sortie was accompanied by the thunderous roar of energy blasts. Every return left the mech's armor riddled with scars. Blood-soaked, yet it stood as tall as a mountain. Li's strikes, the swarm retreats. This phrase became the rallying cry across all front lines. Meanwhile, on the other side of the base, Su Yan, Shen Mingjie, and Wang Jiwan worked day and night. Using the combat data sent back by Yue Weifeng, they recalculated the mech's energy output curve, the armor's load-bearing structure, and the neural synchronization feedback latency. A thick, comprehensive optimization plan for the Lee's combat mech was finally completed. Once this plan is put into mass production, Shin Mingji said, wiping his sleep-deprived, dark-circled face, a smile on his lips, this swarm, even if there were 10 times as many of them, wouldn't be worth a second glance. Suyan let out a soft sigh. If I could, she said, I'd really want to stay and continue perfecting this with all of you. Wan Jiwan patted her on the shoulder. You've already helped us more than enough. Go back now, take these results with you, and help us keep the flame of hope alive. The time for departure was near. The Liting Special Task Force, led by Zheng Zhe, had finished assembling, but the equipment they had brought with them was left neatly arranged on the base's plaza. Dozens of Type 100 main battle tanks, along with hundreds of crates of essential supplies and ammunition. I looked at it all and smiled faintly. Just leave all this here. You need it more than we do. Xia Haori was taken aback for a moment. Then he gave a solemn military salute. Thank you, comrades. No matter what world you are in the future, the great Xie of this world will forever be in your debt. The wind howled across the base's plaza. Sunlight pierced through the dust and smoke, glinting off the combat mechs and tanks, reflecting a dazzling metallic light. I, Su Yan, Shen Mingjie, Zheng Ji, and the others stood before the portal. In that moment, there were no grand speeches, only the resolute gazes we shared, and a shared conviction. Great Xia is eternal. After leaving Lop Nur, the energy of the portal had not yet fully dissipated. Director of the Security Bureau, Yu Gudong, was waiting personally at the exit. Welcome back, comrades. You've worked hard. What's the situation over there? Su Yan removed her protective suit, her expression still etched with tension. Overall, things went quite smoothly. Through a joint effort between us and their research team, using the Xuanhui stones we collected from the Cataclysm world, the Shuanglan mirrors, and the Spirit Mother ore, we combined our efforts with theirs. The originally incomplete design for the Lee's combat mech, we successfully built a prototype and conducted structural and combat tests. As she spoke, her eyes sparkled with light. Its performance in actual combat was outstanding. The mech's defensive capabilities and firepower can effectively suppress the swarm. During the battle at the southeastern defensive line, a single unit turned the tide of the entire fight. Yu Guodong was incredibly excited to hear this. He couldn't help but slam his hand on the table. Excellent, this is truly a game-changing achievement. Su Yan's voice immediately grew somber. It's just that Yu Guodong's smile vanished instantly, his gaze sharp. Su Yan sighed. Their supply chain has been shattered by the cataclysm. It's almost completely paralyzed. Their capacity to produce the mechs is severely limited. Even if we provide them with the optimized technical plans, in the short term, it will be difficult for them to mass produce. She added, furthermore, the Lee's combat mech requires special neural synchronization pilots, and in the current state of war, it's almost impossible to conduct systematic screening and training. Wu Guodong stood up, pacing back and forth with his hands behind his back. Chips are indeed a tough problem. Without chips, even if we have the technology, we can't deploy it. Su Yan nodded. That's why they and I have discussed a new direction for cooperation. We will rely on our complete industrial system to manufacture the Misha components. At the same time, on a national scale, we'll screen for adapters with the right mental and neural strength. As long as they volunteer, we can organize cross-dimensional reinforcements. We'll send real mecha pilots into that apocalyptic world to fight. The meeting room fell into a dead silence. A few seconds later, Wu Guodong took a deep breath and nodded firmly. Excellent. This is the true backbone of our great Daya. We can't just stand by and watch. We must provide aid. Su Yan smiled faintly. Next, we'll have to see how things are going on Chenmo's end. Everyone's eyes turned toward me. I slowly raised my head, my gaze unwavering. I can feel it too. In 7 days, I can open a stable teleportation portal. When that time comes, the portal can be maintained indefinitely. We can establish a permanent passage. Hearing this, Wu Guodong's face lit up with overwhelming joy. He patted my shoulder, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Well done, Chenmo. This journey of yours has opened the door to hope. Soon after, the progress report was submitted. An unprecedented secret meeting was held in the capital. There were barely any reporters present. Security Bureau Chief Wu Guodong, Eastern Theater Commander Xia Xiangyao, Western Theater Commander Wan Yuxiang, along with Great Xia's core members of the Central Strategic Committee. When the report, jointly signed by the three of them, detailing the proposal for the laser mecha production system, was presented, the meeting room fell so silent that you could hear the rustling of paper. 5 minutes later, the Central Committee approved it. The highest authorities immediately launched the project, codenamed LEES, the goal to build a complete mecha production chain, energy systems, execution units, nationwide, a joint effort between key research institutes and national defense enterprises. Project Commander-in-Chief, Su Yan. This was a project capable of changing the global industrial landscape. However, to ensure absolute secrecy, the project's public cover was Project 6. A few days later, research institutes across the country began receiving encrypted documents sent down from the Central Committee. The design blueprints and manufacturing specs were highly compartmentalized. No one knew what these blueprints would actually build when put together, but every single data point marked on them gave the engineers goosebumps. This torque intensity, our current alloys can't possibly handle this. The curve of this energy conduit is beyond imagination. Isn't this on par with submarine-grade tech? Who the hell is running this project? Is this even something humans can build? Everyone gasped in endless amazement, but no one dared to ask questions, because the documents clearly stated the security clearance. Top secret. No details of the project are to be leaked to the outside world. When they looked closer at the 4 key materials in the blueprints, black ash stone, carbon wave blue crystal ore, and star iron titanium alloy, the entire scientific community was shaken. These 4 materials, since when could our country mass-produce them? These energy-conducting materials, black ash, blue crystal, we haven't even heard of their names before, yet their specs far exceed international theoretical limits. Even the top research institutes were baffled, but everyone understood one thing clearly. We were quietly entering a completely new era of technology. A few days later, the whole country entered LEES mode. Thousands of research institutes, tens of thousands of factories, millions of scientific researchers, all commenced work simultaneously under absolute secrecy. Factories everywhere roared day and night. Production tasks cascaded down like a waterfall. Aerospace, metallurgy, electromagnetics, energy. 5 major material systems coordinating comprehensively. At the same time, Great Asia's Ministry of Commerce quietly made its move. Under the guise of a 6th-generation aircraft project, they conducted massive global acquisitions of rare metals and key chemical raw materials, nickel, titanium. The price of rare earths on the international market skyrocketed for days on end. Foreign media speculated endlessly. They are secretly developing a new generation of strategic weapons. What on earth are they building? An aircraft? Or some giant monster? Meanwhile, at Great Shia's Scientific Research Command Center, only one cold command was issued: max out the capacity, expand the production scale. Project LEES was pushed forward at full throttle. At the same time, targeting the neural system of the LEES mecha, the synchronizer screening plan was swiftly launched by Great Zia on a national scale. Su Yan and the others brought back the blueprints for the measuring equipment. It was classified by the Central Committee as a top priority scientific research project. In a very short amount of time, the first batch of testing equipment was mass-produced at military industrial research institutes. The appearance of these devices, compared to standard medical scanners, didn't look much different. But the core algorithm inside could accurately read a person's neural pathways, reflex intensity, mental resonance frequency, and subconscious energy compatibility. These metrics were the key to piloting the LEES mecha. The first round of testing was secretly conducted across the entire military. Millions of active duty soldiers lined up to be tested. Military regions, special forces brigades, and aerospace forces all deployed simultaneously. When the test results were compiled in front of Su Yan, she was completely stunned. Out of millions of people, the report clearly stated high compatibility 12 people, Class B 31 people, Class C 48 people. Shen Mingji frowned. Too few. This ratio isn't even 1 in 100,000. Theater Commander Xia Xiangyao finished reading the report and let out a heavy sigh. Piloting a mecha is indeed not something an ordinary person can handle. Speak up, he said, looking toward Wu Guodong. Should we expand the screening scope? Roll out comprehensive testing on a national scale. Wu Guodong hesitated for a moment. Comprehensive testing, that would cause too much of a stir. It'll make the outside world suspicious. Xia Xiangyao smiled faintly. Then we'll just give it a different name. Under the guise of a national free health checkup initiative, Wu Godong immediately understood his intention. He nodded and said, "Let's proceed with this plan." At the same time, all testing data must be connected directly to the Central Committee. Encrypted servers strictly prohibit any external leaks. Very soon after, an unprecedented nationwide health checkup campaign quietly unfolded across Great Xie. From office workers in major cities to ordinary residents in remote, deep mountain villages, everyone received the same notice. The nation is launching a free health checkup initiative to comprehensively upgrade the national health database. The testing categories were highly diverse, but one specific test drew attention: neural reflex and brainwave resonance testing. No one knew the true secret behind this test. Meanwhile, in the shadows, watching the dense, flashing brainwave curves, someone muttered softly, 1.4 billion people, bound to find a group of souls capable of resonating with the mechas. At that moment, in every hospital across Great Shaya and research institutes within military bases, all were operating for the same crucial goal: searching for the Guardians, who shared a telepathic connection with the Lee's mechas. We're under the guise of the R&D plan. For the 6th-generation multi-role manned aerospace vehicle, they were actually pushing the manufacturing system with all their might, the Lize Mecha. At the same time, across the ocean, the atmosphere instantly boiled over. The very next day, the Great Xia government made another announcement, comprehensively promoting the new energy strategy, upgrading everything from energy sources to civilian life. In terms of household appliances, electric stoves, and thermoelectric systems would completely replace gas stoves and other fossil fuel devices like natural gas ranges. In terms of transportation, a new generation of nuclear-powered electric trains, public buses, and tram systems were simultaneously established. In the industrial sector, they realized a zero-emission power production chain. In the consumer sector, new energy vehicles, smart homes, and electric tools were universally popularized. The entire country, seemingly overnight, stepped into a literal era of limitless energy. The internet exploded with discussions. Electricity bills are now only 1/100th of what they used to be. Isn't this basically free? Brothers, who's even going to use natural gas anymore? Just use nuclear power straight up. I literally just replaced my gas stove. I'm dizzy just watching the news. Alimeo, Yingjiang's oil embargo, ended up helping Great Xia usher in a new energy era. The economic war that was supposed to be Yingjiang's killer move to choke off our energy supply was flipped by Great Xia using nuclear tech, turning the tables and becoming the opening ceremony for a new era of civilization. The night sky over Lop Nur was unusually bright. I strolled through the base's courtyard. The lights beneath my feet cast a soft glow. A gentle breeze carried the scent of dust, yet added a touch of tranquility. Lin Xinyu was by my side, the moonlight shining on her hair, gentle and warm. I looked up at the starry sky on the horizon and smiled, starting from those chips so that every citizen of Great Xia could use better things, cheaper CPUs and GPUs, to this very day, using nuclear fusion so the whole country can have cheap electricity. I feel like I'm truly leading everyone toward a better life. Lin Xinyu tilted her head, resting her chin in her hand, her sparkling eyes looking at me. In the dark night, her smile was like a gentle lantern, making her look radiant. It's all thanks to you. Chen Mo smiled and shook his head. I'm just the one who opened a door. The ones who truly made all this a reality are the countless people working hard out there. It's Qi Ming from the Fusion Research Institute, Bei and Fan from the Computing Institute, and all the other silent researchers. The workers, the engineers, the workers, the engineers. He looked up at the sky illuminated by starlight, his voice becoming firm yet gentle. All of this is the light that belongs to every citizen of Great Xia. While the outside world was still reeling from the activation of the Xiehe reactor, the pace over at Lop Nur was halted by something else. They had to completely stabilize that portal and connect with the apocalyptic world to form a dynamic supply chain, transferring all manpower and relief supplies over there. The first batch of key components for the Lize Mecha had been lined up in order. Transport trucks carrying black ash stone, carbon wave blue crystal ore, and strange ores brought back from the other world had filled several massive underground storage bunkers. Like a silent mountain of ore awaiting its destiny, everything was waiting for the exact same moment. A stable teleportation portal. Once the portal opens, goods and people will move, forming a closed-loop chain. Military orders are like mountains. To ensure combat capability and logistics on the other side, the Central Committee mobilized the elite forces guarding the capital. The 81st Shenwei Army Group received orders to fall in. Tianchuan, Kangyao, and the Chixiao combined brigades were ready to strike. Armored infantry had fully assembled, geared up through the night, and formed their ranks. The one leading the troops was Central Theater Commander Ge Zhongji. He stood before the staging area. His gaze was cold, as if trying to see through the entirety of Lop Nur. Beside him stood the commander of the Western Theater Command, Wan Yuxing, and the commander of the Eastern Theater Command, Xia Hongyao, standing side by side. The moment the three men shook hands, it was both a silent understanding and a passing of the torch. Ge Hongzhe chuckled softly. I'm leading an entire army group to the other side for reinforcements. The rear is now empty. Don't let me come back to find our home overrun by the enemy. Wan Yuxiang patted his shoulder, brimming with confidence. Don't worry, we have more than enough ways to hold the fort. Just focus on holding the line over there. Xia Hongyao smirked slightly, his eyes flashing with a mocking, threatening glint. If the insectoids dare to pull any tricks right at our doorstep, we'll hit them with the deadliest strikes. If they actually dare to make a move, I guarantee they'll never even think about it again. The three men looked at each other and laughed. Their laughter carried a sense of ease, but mostly it was a suppressed, imposing aura. As their words faded, a solemn atmosphere took over. The laughter abruptly stopped. Everyone knew this wasn't a drill. This was about the survival of millions of innocent civilians. Wan Yuxiang smiled, but couldn't hide the heaviness in his expression. If we're talking about danger, your side is still far more perilous. After all, this is a direct confrontation with the insectoids. In the command center's dispatch hall, the lights were blazing. On the massive theater operations board, dense lines intertwined like a spiderweb. Which unit was in charge of escorting the ore? Which brigade handled the assembly and transport of the mechas? Which engineering regiment was setting up temporary power stations and the refueling lines? Which defense squadron held the front line and stabilized the rear? Every single line was a lifeline. Behind every symbol lay the lives of tens of thousands of people. Supplies were numbered, packed, and encrypted. Transport convoys lined up in neat formations. Even the passes for ordinary workers were classified and issued overnight. A mistake in any single link could jeopardize the entire Crossworld campaign. I stood to the side, my eyes sweeping over the transport convoy. The teleportation gate radiated a brilliant blue light. Then my gaze shifted back and forth between the figures of the three generals. He knew very well that every decision made here would become reality through his gate. Lin Shenyu walked up beside him and said softly, "Don't worry, everyone is ready." I nodded, my tone calm but incredibly firm. "We'll transfer everything we possibly can over there. You all just make sure to hold on to everything you can." In both worlds, everyone was devoted to their duty. The wind whipped up the sand and dust of Lop Nur, howling as it swept past. Military flags fluttered wildly. The glint of steel from their armor reflected against the sky. This was no drill, nor was it for show. This was a mobilization, a passing of the torch, a solemn oath. The gate is about to open. The path must be cleared. The lights must be lit. Wan Yuxiang looked at Ge Hongzhe one last time, his voice deep but full of authority. Those who march out are the pillars of our great Xia. Those who stay behind are the family we must protect. The time had come. I took a deep breath. In the blink of an eye, the entire underground space of Lop Nur was illuminated by a brilliant blue-white aura. A blinding vortex of energy surged in midair. The teleportation gate was fully open. The gate was like a curtain of light, expanding steadily amidst a roaring sound and low-frequency resonance. Space twisted and warped. The air was thick with the smell of metal and ionization. Suyan and I stepped in first. Light swirled beneath our feet, and our figures instantly vanished into the deep blue light. The disaster world, Great Xia's military base, 01. At this moment, Supreme Commander Xia Harui was already on site. Hearing the frontline report that the spatial gate had opened, he practically sprinted out of the command center to welcome us. The familiar blue-white light flashed across the clearing. As two figures stepped out of the beam of light, a long-lost smile finally appeared on his face. "Comrades, you've arrived." But a moment later, he frowned in confusion. "Is it just the two of you?" I smiled, my eyes gleaming. "Of course it's not just us. This time, It's a permanent connection. I lowered my voice, a hint of pride lacing my words. We've prepared a surprise for you. As soon as I finished speaking, the blare of military bugles echoed from Lop Nur on the other side. A torrent of steel roared. The roar of the Central Theater commander, Ji Hongze, echoed across the command channel. Shinwei Army Group, march with me. The deafening synchronized response was ear-splitting, rolling like thunder across the vast lands of Lop Nur. The Vanguard, Combined Brigade, moved out. Rows of Type 100 main battle tanks, self-propelled artillery, the engines of howitzers, and long-range rocket artillery roared. Tank treads churned the earth. Dust clouded the air. Like a surging torrent of steel, they poured toward the teleportation gate. The roar of engines thunders. Mingling with shouted commands, they weave a heroic anthem that transcends worlds. The first tank bursts through the dimensional gate. Close behind is Chang Yaoyang and Qi Xiaolong. The entire army corps surges forward like a mighty crimson tide from the heart of the great Xia in the Calamity world. Inside the command center, the tremors make the very ground shake. Xia Haorui watches, stunned. One by one, steel war machines painted with mysterious emblems emerge from the curtain of light. The blue light reflects off their layered armor plating like steel beasts stepping onto a new battlefield. His throat tightens. His voice grows hoarse, almost trembling. Thank you truly, thank you. At this moment, he understands that this isn't just simple aid. It's the great Xia from another world, bringing their entire core force, their very best elites, and entrusting them all to this place. No matter how powerful the great Xia on the other side is, they can't possibly have many army corps like this one. To be able to send an entire army as reinforcements is no small feat. As the last vehicle of the Divine Might Army Corps enters the wasteland bathed in pale blue light on the other side of the dimensional gate, the roaring continues unabated. Immediately after, the second wave of transport vehicles arrives. Their headlights form a long, winding dragon, illuminating the entire night sky of the Calamity world. Military trucks loaded with supplies drive out one after another. Inside the cargo holds are neatly stacked metal blocks, skilloframes and energy panels. These are the core components of the Les Mechs. Mechanical arms lift up, giant mechanical cranes. The air is filled with a cold, metallic tang. The scent of metal mingles with a symphony of willpower. Wan Zhuan steps forward to receive them. An undeniable glint of excitement flashes in his eyes. I take off my gloves and say with a smile, time was tight. Our production lines could only rush production on enough parts to assemble 5 mechs. Hearing this, Wan Zhuan freezes. Wan Zhuan is stunned. Then he blurts out, in such a short amount of time, you managed to complete 5 whole sets? He is deeply shaken. His eyes are involuntarily drawn to the labeled crates, carbon fiber cores, and miniature fusion reactors. He knows that every single component represents a world-spanning miracle. In just a few short days, the people on the other side managed to mass-produce the components for an entire machine. This proves that the great Xia over there has not only stabilized interdimensional transport, but also possesses a production capability that is nothing short of an industrial miracle. He exclaims, the great Xia on your side is truly astonishingly powerful. If our own supply chain hadn't been destroyed by the calamity, perhaps we could have fought side by side. I smile and shake my head. We have always been fighting side by side, just separated by a door in time. Just as Xia Harui thinks the transport mission is over and prepares to order the defense perimeter closed, another thunderous roar suddenly erupts from the other side of the dimensional gate. The curtain of light flickers violently. Then, more military transport vehicles begin to emerge. Their cargo beds are covered with thick, shock-proof tarps, and on their sides, written in bold red paint, specialized munitions aid. A crane lifts the tarp, revealing neatly arranged missile crates, artillery shells, autocannon magazines, anti-armor rocket launchers, and even new model energy munitions, as well as component modules for electromagnetic pulse cannons. Xia Haorui is momentarily dumbfounded, so shocked he can barely speak. But all of this, as I explain with a smile, my tone calm but filled with pride. This is military aid from our great Xia. Weapons, ammunition, energy supplies, mech components, and emergency medical equipment are in the convoy behind this one. Anything we could send, we sent it all. In that moment, all the officers and soldiers of the great Xie in the Calamity world rise to their feet. They watch the interdimensional supply line, the armored transport trucks rolling in, and every one of them has tears in their eyes. Meanwhile, on the other side, in the great Xia of Azure Star, Countless weapons factories are roaring day and night. Molten steel flows. Sparks fly. The rhythm of the assembly lines creates a mechanical symphony. In one of the weapons factories, two workers whisper as they work, "Hey, our factory used to run at minimum capacity, so why are all the lines suddenly running at full tilt? At this pace, it feels like we're gearing up for a major war. You haven't heard? Word is the higher-ups are preparing for a massive campaign. Either we're fighting the Zerg, or he lowers his voice and grins mysteriously. We're fighting aliens. Ha ha, fighting aliens? Get out of here. Stop joking." They both burst out laughing, but they have no idea how close to the truth that statement actually is. Only, that war isn't being fought in this world. But every bolt they tighten, every shell they load, will cross the dimensional gate to reinforce another world, where the lands of the great Xia are being devoured by the Zerg. Jia Haorui watches the endless convoy of vehicles, an infinite stream of supplies pouring into the base. Finally, he can't help but smile. It's a smile of relief and emotion after a long period of suppression. "Thank you." His voice trembles slightly. "Thank you for your aid. The great Xia will never forget this." The words have barely left his mouth when the base's alarm suddenly blares. Blinding red lights flash and spin. Blinding red lights flash and spin. A frantic warning blasts from the loudspeakers. Massive Zerg swarm detected to the southwest, numbers exceeding 1 million, approaching the defensive line. The color drains from Xie Haorui's face. Damn it! Before he can even issue a command, a deep and powerful voice rings out across the war room. Reporting to the commander-in-chief, Jie Xiongzhe strides in. Already geared up, he wears a tactical cloak. His expression is as cold as stone. "The southwestern defensive line will be handled by our great Xia's Divine Might Army Corps." Xia Haorui is taken aback and immediately shakes his head. "No, you can't. You've come from another world. You've traveled so far to aid us. I can't let you charge into the most dangerous sector." But Jie Xiongzhe takes another step forward. His voice booms like thunder. "Dangerous? So what?" He raises his head, staring at the area dyed. A deep blood red on the command map. His eyes burn like torches. "We may come from different timelines, but we are all people of the great Xia," his shout echoes, shaking the entire hall. "Same ancestors, same roots. Same blood, same race. Since we bear the name of the great Xia, then let us defend the dawn of our future together." The next second, the command center's broadcast system crackles to life. All units of the Divine Might Army Corps move out. A roar, like a flash flood, rolls over the base. Tank engines scream. The heavy artillery formation mobilizes. Soldiers quickly board their vehicles. Jie Xiongzhe stands atop the lead Type 100 tank, wielding his command sword. His figure is a steadfast silhouette against the fire and dust. Move out, the steel torrent of 10,000 soldiers surges forward. The deep blue glow from the dimensional gate illuminates the entire defensive zone. An army of the great Xia from another world has embarked on a journey to fight for their brethren in a different dimension. Xia Haorui watches the steel torrent recede into the distance. A lump forms in his throat. He can only whisper one thing: "They truly are our countrymen." I stand beside him, my gaze profound. My heart also burns with passion and respect. On the front lines, smoke and fire fill the sky. Gunsmoke mingles with a bloody mist. The defensive line, already on the verge of collapse, is crumbling. Hoarse cries for help crackle endlessly over the radio. "This is Combat Zone 3, Southwestern Defensive Line, requesting reinforcements." I repeat, requesting reinforcements. But the only answer they receive is the earth-shattering roar of the Zerg swarm. "Captain, we're almost out of ammo." Hold the line before he can finish. A young soldier suddenly takes off, his helmet revealing a brilliant smile. His teeth are stained with blood. "Take care of my mom for me." "Husi, what are you doing?" But the young man has already shouldered his machine gun and grabbed a demolition pack. He leaps out of the trench. He shouts a battle cry as he fires. His voice is drowned out by the gunfire. A few seconds later, a deafening explosion erupts in the middle of the monster swarm. The shockwave sweeps across the battlefield. Flesh and bone, mixed with the shattered fragments of Husi's armor, fly everywhere. The captain's hoarse scream is lost in the roar of battle. He knows that young soldier used his own life to buy the defensive line a few precious seconds of respite. "Command, we can't hold on much longer. 3 layers of the frontline position have been breached." The captain clutches his headset, roaring, requesting orders. His voice is swallowed by the sky-shaking explosions. His face is caked with dust and blood. He knows the entire nation is locked in a bloody war. East, west, south, north. The Zerg nests are like an endless ocean. Every inch of land is being defended to the death. Suddenly, a calm, deep voice comes through his headset. Cutting through the static, it carries a power that steadies the heart. This is Shia Harui, Supreme Commander of the Great Sia Central Command. Reinforcements have been dispatched. They will reach your combat zone within 10 minutes. Hold on. If the situation becomes uncontrollable, you are authorized to conduct an orderly retreat from the outer perimeter. Preserve your strength. The captain's whole body trembles. He stares intently at the churning Zerg nest in the distance. He slams a fist against his chest plate. You hear that? High Command ordered us to hold on. Everyone hold this line for me. A roar goes up, igniting the blood of every soldier. The soldiers grit their teeth. Though their arms are trembling, though their breath is thick with the smell of blood, they still raise their guns and aim straight at the black tide of Zerg. On the southwestern front, thick smoke billows. The remaining squad, running on hot blood and a stubborn fighting spirit, managed to hold on. Grenades and mortars. In just a few short minutes, they actually pushed back thousands of Zerg. Although the Zerg swarm has only temporarily retreated, for these soldiers who have just stared death in the face, these few short minutes of rest feel like a rebirth. The captain leans against the battered trench wall. His body is covered in blood and grime. He gasps for breath, watching the roiling Zerg swarm ahead. Will the reinforcements make it in time? He mutters. His voice is tinged with helplessness. At that very moment, inside a command vehicle 20 kilometers away, Ge Xiongze, wearing a flak jacket, stands in front of his armored vehicle. He issues commands, his voice like a thunderclap. All troops, listen up! Deploy in battle formation. Target 20 kilometers ahead. Shanghai, Southwestern Combat Zone. Rocket artillery, load up. 155mm heavy artillery positions, prepare for volley fire. 155mm truck-mounted self-propelled howitzers, all truck-mounted cannons, open fire. Thermobaric bombs, thermite bombs, white phosphorus incendiaries. Give 'em everything we've got. Full barrage in just a few short seconds. Tianjuan, Kangyao, all heavy artillery of the 3rd Chixiao Brigade, elevate barrel simultaneously, load fire. Thousands of cannons roar in unison. The heavens and the earth tremble. The entire Gobi Desert was blown apart into a churning sea of fire. Pillars of dust, swept up by the firestorm, rose hundreds of meters into the air. Even the air itself was scorched a blazing red. The soldiers on the front lines were bracing themselves for the swarm's next wave of attacks. Suddenly, the very next second after that screech, the entire horizon was swallowed by flames. The shockwave from the explosion slammed right into their faces. The blazing fire reflected in the soldiers' eyes. The insectoids were blown to pieces, flesh and bone shattered. Severed limbs flew everywhere. The ground trembled amidst the deafening roar. The captain stared blankly at the burning sea of bugs. He laughed, but as he did, tears uncontrollably streamed down his face. Ha ha ha! They're here! Reinforcements are here, he muttered, his voice trembling. I thought I'd never get to see a sight like this ever again. Ever since the apocalyptic disaster broke out, the supply chains collapsed. That kind of earth-shattering artillery bombardment had long become a distant memory. But now, the flames were roaring once more. The roar of cannons once again drowned out the swarm's shrieks. In that moment, they finally saw it again. The torrent of steel of Great Shia, roaring to life once more. The gun smoke from the inferno had yet to clear, when a new wave of roars surged forward. At the very edge of the horizon, the swarm was churning once again, like a pitch-black ocean. The dense, crawling sounds, the roars, and the buzzing of wings swarming in made it feel like the air itself was being torn apart. Captain, the sea of bugs is surging up again. The vacuum zone that had just been bombed into scorched earth was now being filled by countless new bugs, like a tidal wave crawling out of hell. 20 kilometers behind the front lines, the Shenwei Army Group's command center was brightly lit. Jie Xingze leaned one hand on the tactical sandbox, his eyes as sharp as a hawk's. The drone footage transmitted back showed the frontline defense forces were thinning out. Urgent combat report. The defense line could be swallowed by the sea of bugs at any moment. He coldly issued an order. Order the Tiangsuan Heavy Armor Brigade. Dispatch the 3rd Battalion. and the combined battalion to immediately advance and reinforce the front lines. Also, artillery support must not be interrupted. I want to see if they have more bugs or if we have more shells. Right after the order was given, the battlefield once again echoed with the sounds of bombardment. Countless tongues of fire erupted. The sky was torn apart by the blazing trajectories of artillery shells. The sea of bugs was once again blasted flat. The frontline soldiers looking at that sea of fire felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction welling up inside them for the first time. "You damn beasts! You finally get what's coming to you!" Captain Wang Yingqian gripped his rifle tightly, covered in dust. He smiled, but his brows were tightly furrowed. Suddenly, an excited soldier ran over. "Captain, our reinforcements are here." "What?" Wang Yingqian looked up. In the distance, through the thick dust, a torrent of steel was rushing toward them. It was dozens of Type 100 tanks, heavy armored vehicles, and tactical infantry formations. The torrent of steel surged forward. The gunsmoke had yet to clear when new roars echoed out. At the edge of the horizon, the swarm was churning once again, like a pitch-black ocean. The dense, crawling sounds, the roars, and the buzzing of wings made it feel like the air itself was being torn apart. "Captain, the sea of bugs is surging up again." The vacuum zone that had just been bombed into scorched earth was now being filled by countless new insectoids, like a tidal wave crawling out of hell. 20 kilometers behind the front lines, the Shenwei Army Group's command center was brightly lit. Jie Xingzhe leaned one hand on the tactical sandbox, his eyes as sharp as a hawk's. The drone footage transmitted back showed the frontline defense forces were thinning out. "Urgent combat report. The defense line could be swallowed by the sea of bugs at any moment." He coldly issued an order. "Order the Tiangsuan Heavy Armor Brigade to dispatch the combined battalion to strike. Immediately advance and reinforce the front lines. Also, fire support must not be interrupted. I want to see if they have more bugs or if we have more artillery shells." After the order was given, the battlefield roared to life once again. Countless tongues of fire erupted. The sky was torn apart by the blazing trajectories of artillery shells. The sea of bugs was once again blasted into ash and dust. The frontline soldiers looking at that sea of fire felt a long-lost sense of exhilaration welling up inside them. "You damn beasts! You finally get what's coming to you." Captain Wan Yuxiang raised his rifle high, covered in dirt and dust. He smiled, but his brows were tightly furrowed. Suddenly, an excited soldier ran over. "Captain, our reinforcements are here?" "What?" Wan Yingqian looked up. In the distance, through the thick dust, a torrent of steel was rushing toward them at high speed. It was dozens of Type 100 tanks, heavy armored vehicles, and tactical infantry formations. The torrent of steel swept through everything. Muzzle flashes sparkled. A few minutes later, the two units converged at the front lines. "I'm the defense captain here. Wan Yingtian, Tianquan Combined Brigade, Battalion Commander of the All-Arms Battalion, Xiao Yanzi." Hearing this designation, Wan Yingtian was stunned. "Shenwei Army Group? I've never heard of this unit before." Xiao Yanzi gave a faint smile. "We're from the great Xia of another world." In that moment, even the wind seemed to stop. Wan Yingtian stood frozen for a long time, then suddenly broke into a bright smile. He kept smiling as tears blurred his vision. "It doesn't matter which world's great Xia you're from. As long as you're here to reinforce us, that's all that matters. We're brothers." He reached out a hand covered in mud, blood, and scars. Xiaoyan immediately reached out and grasped it. With a firm, steady grip, Wan Yingtian choked up. Over this past period, too many comrades had died right beside him. He had thought that in this war, no one could save them anymore. But now, he finally saw another group of people wearing the uniform of Great Xia stepping out from the flames. In that moment, he finally felt that someone had come to help them hold up the sky of Great Xia. Under Xiao Yan's command, the reinforced combined battalion joined the battle. The defense line, which had been hanging by a thread, finally stabilized. The flames on the battlefield scorched the earth and sky into a blazing red. The roars of mechas and armored vehicles intertwined. The clinking of shell casings hitting the ground sounded like a blood-soaked battle hymn. In the command vehicle at the rear, Jie Xingzhe watched the drone footage. Seeing the endless sea of insectoids still surging forward, his brows furrowed tightly. "These bugs really are relentless ghosts," he laughed coldly. Then he slammed his hand on the table. "Relay my orders. All artillery positions fall back 2 kilometers. Thermobaric bombs. Open fire across the entire line." A staff officer hesitated for a moment. "After this attack, I'm afraid our ammo will Xingzhe cut him off." His tone was cold and hard as cold steel. Don't worry about the ammo. Supplies from the rear are coming through the teleportation gate. At full speed, tell the artillery, today, we're going to give the Sea of Bugs a feast. 10 or so minutes later, over the Sea of Bugs, a blinding light flared up into a continuous streak. The sky was completely dyed red by the flames. The moment the thermobaric bombs detonated, the very air was incinerated. The fuel air cloud ignited in the explosion, creating a shockwave that swept clean for several kilometers. Small mushroom clouds popped up one after another, rolling continuously across the horizon. The massive boom shook heaven and earth. The ground was flipped upside down. The swarm was torn apart by the extreme heat and pressure. Even the blood mist was sucked into the scorching air pockets, turning the area into a pitch-black, charred vacuum. Wan Yuxiang, on the front lines, wiped the dirt from his face, his eyes full of shock. Damn, this firepower is too brutal. Are these artillery shells of yours? Fed on nuclear reactors or something? Xiao Yun beside him smiled, explaining, these are thermobaric bombs. By mixing fuel with the air, they create a thermal explosion. The high temperature and the shock wave from the secondary explosion will incinerate all the oxygen in the area. Simply put, anything that can survive this is either an insectoid or a monster. Wan Yingtian couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. At this moment, Ji Jingzhe, in the rear, continued to issue orders. Machine guns on the armored vehicles, all medium firepower squads advance and suppress. Against any remaining insectoids, deploy carpet-sweeping tactics. Roger immediately. Thousands of vehicle-mounted machine guns roared, advancing forward. The metal ammo belts glinted with a cold light under the sun. The dense net of fire wove together without a single gap, tearing the surviving insectoids to shreds. The southwest defense line finally held firm. In the combat command hall, a series of red warning lights gradually turned green. The anxiety and tension that had filled the air finally began to dissipate. Xia Haorui let out a long sigh of relief. He seemed to age several years in the blink of an eye. Over the past half-year, Great Xia had been besieged on all sides. The disaster broke out in the northwest, and he gritted his teeth, mobilizing 14 field armies nationwide to suppress it. The southeast coast fell, and he deployed another 14 main forces to reinforce it. The remaining scattered troops still had to be distributed across the central and border regions to prop up defense lines that were on the verge of collapse. The current front lines had been stretched thinner than anyone could imagine. And just last time, that breakthrough by the swarm had pushed all the way to within 15 kilometers of the base. They almost captured Great Xia's final central hub. If it weren't for the Lise Mecha prototype arriving in time to reinforce them, fighting to the death to hold the line, this command center would likely have long been reduced to ruins. Unfortunately, that was the only mecha they had. For a Great Xia riddled with battlefronts, it was just a drop in the bucket. Thinking of this, Xia Haorui couldn't help but shake his head slightly. His eyes once again turned to the holographic map in front of him. Thank goodness, he muttered, his voice trembling slightly. Thank goodness you guys arrived in time. He looked up at me and solemnly bowed. Thank you. You really gave us. I reached out to support him, my voice firm. Commander-in-Chief Xia, you and I share the same roots. We are all descendants of Yan and Huang of Great Xia. The ones who truly deserve to be thanked are the soldiers still risking their lives on the very front lines. They are the true backbone holding up this land. Xia Haorui was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. You're right. They are the true heroes. He looked toward the electronic board on the wall. The cold numbers kept jumping every minute, every second. Every jump meant a life lost. In that moment, the Supreme Commander, bearing the weight of Great Xia's survival, lowered his gaze slightly. But then he muttered in a low voice, as long as we have a single breath left, we must hold the line. Haorui's eyes stopping on the components of the 5 lazy mechas, those metal parts gleamed under the lights like a silent beacon of hope. He reached out and gently stroked a piece of spirit titanium alloy armor, his voice deep but full of strength. These mecha components you sent me hold an extraordinary significance. To build a complete mecha from scratch is incredibly difficult. Our world has been torn apart by the insectoid disaster. Energy and materials are both scarce, but with these components, we just need to assemble them, and we can bring the 5 lazy mechas back to the battlefield. Beside him, Dr. Wang Jiayuan had long forgotten about resting. He led the researchers and engineers working through the night. They brought in the restored capacitor units, arranging them in Lab Area 2. Careful with the vibrations, the aquamarine energy conduits need to be preheated to 300 degrees before connecting. Orders rang out in rapid succession. The entire assembly area was brightly lit. Robotic arms swung through the air. The moment the welding sparks flew, the air was filled with the breath of a long-lost hope. I stood before the control console, reviewing the blueprints while reporting. Our side is also simultaneously screening and selecting test subjects compatible with the mecha's neural link. The current data isn't very optimistic. Out of millions of soldiers, less than 100 meet the criteria. If we calculate based on this ratio, we estimate that after the nationwide screening is complete, we might be able to select 10,000 qualified individuals to serve as reserve mecha pilots, and that's already the most optimistic outcome. After speaking, he looked back at Xia Haorui, his voice steady and deep. Before I came here, our superiors issued an order to provide full support to Great Xia in the disaster world. Whether it's mecha pilots, energy supplies, or combat reserve materials, however much we can mobilize, we will send as reinforcements. Hearing this, a surge of emotion welled up in Xia Haorui's heart. He stood up straight, his demeanor solemn, and gave a deep, respectful bow. Thank you for your righteous assistance. We currently have reserve mecha pilots, a little over 300 of them. But compared to this massive front line, this number is just a drop in the bucket. What truly worries us isn't the lack of manpower, but the lack of mechas. I nodded repeatedly and immediately replied, we've already started addressing that. On our side, the production line for the laser mechas has just been activated. Production capacity is steadily increasing. We estimate that in a month, monthly output could reach 100 units. In 3 months, monthly output will exceed 1,000 units. By then, we will prioritize transferring a portion of the completed mechas to you. Hearing this, a long-lost gleam of light flashed in Xia Haorui's eyes. That's fantastic. As long as we have enough mechas, we can stabilize the situation. When we run out of compatible pilots on our end, we hope your side can provide more pilots. If you could support us with a team of operators. I smiled faintly, my tone resolute. Don't worry, we are all people of Great Xia. However many you need, we will deploy. We will deploy as many as it takes. On the other side, the scientific research sector was brightly lit through the night. Dr. Wang Jiayuan took off his protective gloves, his palms drenched in sweat. But his hands didn't dare stop for even a second. Keep pushing, he roared, his voice hoarse. For every hour we save, that's one less casualty on the front line. The roar of steel echoed through the production workshop. Welding sparks flew like a meteor shower. The technicians, their faces flushed, suppressed their exhaustion, racing against time amidst the intense heat and deafening noise. The crane arm moved slowly. A massive spirit titanium alloy chest plate was fitted onto the chassis. The restored core was firmly embedded into the energy chamber. The conduit of aquamarine energy radiated a deep blue light. The carbon light energy circuit spread across the mecha's entire body, as if pumping a lifeline of vitality into it. Meanwhile, at the front line, Yue Weifeng was piloting the only currently available lazy mecha, still charging and fighting his way through the sea of insectoids. The mecha's surface was already riddled with battle scars. The energy shield was constantly blaring warnings, but he still refused to retreat. Just hold on a little longer. Once the new mechas arrive, the defense line will hold. He practically gritted his teeth as he forced those words out. The spirit battle axe cleaved through the air. With a single downward strike, dozens of insectoids were slashed to dust. Blazing insect blood splattered across the armor, dyeing this giant steel behemoth red amidst the starlight flames. Yue Weifeng's voice came through the comms channel, deep and resolute. I can still hold on, lazy. Can still fight to the bitter end. Right at that moment, the final triumphant news arrived. Thanks to the joint efforts of Dr. Wang Jiayuan, numerous manufacturing experts and researchers, 5 brand new lazy mechas were officially completed. The technicians who had stayed up all night slumped to the ground, looking at the 5 massive iron giants towering under the lights. Their eyes brimmed with tears. This is our miracle. Afterward, an eerie silence fell over the mecha hangar. No one fought for credit. No one shouted to be the first to kill the enemy. All the qualified, compatible pilots silently yielded the piloting rights. To the 5 most suitable candidates, take our fury and strike back at them. Just a few simple words, yet it felt like a silent departure. At dawn that day, at base 001, the 5 lazy meshes were primed and ready. The luminescent energy on their armor glowed as bright as new. Lazy units 2 through 6, move out. The moment the order was given, the 5 colossal figures suddenly blasted into the sky, kicking up massive waves of dust that blotted out the sun. They tore through the air, charging straight toward the most critical defense line. I stood on the high ground of the base, watching the lazy meshes trail brilliant tails of fire as they resolutely advanced toward the insectoid sea on the front line. He remained silent for a long time, only taking a deep breath. Could it be it's because of them that the lights of countless homes can stay lit? The wind swept the sand and dust across his exhausted face, but it couldn't hide that gleam of profound respect. The flames of war along the defense line burned as bright as day. Yue Weifeng's mecha stood alone amidst the ruins. Its steel body was covered in gashes. The energy shield had shattered long ago. He gritted his teeth tightly, operating the scorched control panel of the spirit mecha. Every swing of its arm was accompanied by a piercing screech of energy, ringing out alongside the warning alarms. His comrade's voice came through the radio. "Yue, fall back! Leave this place to us!" Yue Weifeng shouted back. "Kid, do you think I'm an idiot? If I retreat, you guys will just be cannon fodder for the insectoids." Another soldier, eyes red, stared at the screen. The armor plating of that mecha was already covered in cracks. The internal temperature was skyrocketing. "Yue, you really can't keep fighting. Mecha pilots are too rare. Mecha pilots are too rare. Great Saya needs you alive." A brief moment of silence. Yue Weifeng gripped the mesh's control stick tightly, his fingertips trembling slightly. He knew those words weren't wrong. Every successfully compatible mecha pilot was a national treasure. But he understood even better that if he stepped back, the people here wouldn't survive. "But I can't just watch you die in my place. We live and die together." With that, he let out a roar. The mecha was piloted to leap up once more. The battle axe swept horizontally, blood and fire intertwined into a hellscape. But just as the swarm of insectoids was about to swallow him whole, from the sky, another massive beam of light descended. A brand new spirit battle axe flared with blue light, cleaving through the incoming swarm. "Senior, I'm here to back you up." A young yet resolute voice rang out over the comms channel. Yue Weifeng was stunned. His nose stung with emotion, and he let out a hoarse laugh. "You guys finally made it." As soon as the words left his mouth, utterly exhausted, he passed out. A new mecha warrior took over his position, swinging its arms in a series of heavy, continuous strikes. The axe blades surged, tearing through the sea of insectoids. Afterward, he escorted Yue Weifeng to a safe zone, then charged back to the front line. As he held the line, he muttered in a low voice, "Get some rest. Leave the front line to us." And at that very moment, across the entire battlefield's comms channel, countless voices roared in unison. "Yan Huang is unyielding." Inside the base, the lights blazed through the night. Dr. Wang Jiyuan had just led his team to finish the 5 lazy mechas. They were doing the final calibrations for the mechas. Before they could even breathe a sigh of relief, the light at the teleportation gate flared up once again. Rumble, rumble, massive transport trucks barreled out of the blue-white energy vortex. The cargo doors opened, revealing neatly stacked batches of new mecha components inside. There were more than 10 batches. The very air seemed to tremble before these colossal blocks of steel. Looking at those trucks full of materials, Wang Jiyuan was both astonished and overjoyed. The corner of his mouth twitched, and finally, he could only smile wryly and slap his forehead. "Oh man, this is what you call a happy problem." A researcher standing nearby laughed heartily. "Doctor, that's quite the humble brag. You have to realize that these mecha components are the result of hundreds of thousands of people working together in the other world. Thousands of research institutes and tens of thousands of factories went all out just to produce a batch like this." Another researcher sighed in awe as he helped transport the goods. "With our world's production capacity, scraping together just one set was hard enough, and now they're sending them over batch by batch, like cabbages at a market. And they even come with version updates in an instant. The atmosphere in the entire research workshop was filled with excitement. "All right, enough marveling. Get back to work." Wang Jiyuan waved his hand. "From now on, we assemble non-stop, 24 hours a day. We have to get these big guys out onto the battlefield as fast as possible." Welding sparks flew. Machinery roared. Scientists and combat engineers, technicians and apprentices worked side by side. They knew that for every hour they finished early, the front line would suffer one less casualty. Meanwhile, on the other side of the teleportation gate, the logistics command center at Lopnor was in the same state. Weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, and fuel were continuously packed and loaded onto trucks driving into the light gate. The Earthvane Army Group in the Northwest region had endured a grueling, protracted battle and was exhausted to the limit. The front line reported back, the commander's voice hoarse. If we keep fighting like this, our ammo will be completely depleted. Are we supposed to fight the insectoids in close combat with bayonets? How are we supposed to fight this battle? The staff officers remained silent. The atmosphere in the room was so heavy it was suffocating. The artillery fire outside had long since thinned out. The artillerymen collapsed to the ground one by one, clearing out empty shell casings. That feeling of despair when the ammunition runs dry was threatening to swallow the entire front line. Right at that moment, the roar of engines echoed from afar. The engines roared, transport trucks, one after another, tore through the dust and smoke, charging into the battlefield. Before the dust could even settle, the iron doors of the cargo beds were thrown open. Heavy 155mm artillery shells are being unloaded from the trucks. Crates of strategic support supplies from Great Sia are piled up like mountains on the roads leading from the rear. Rocket artillery formations stretch out like coiling dragons as they move into position. Their flashing tail lights form a glowing river of steel. The commander stood frozen for a few seconds, then slammed his fist onto the table, letting out a booming laugh. Why? I see hope now. As the first batch of reinforcement ammunition was loaded, the firepower of the Tianqiang and Dimai army groups was awakened like a long slumbering beast. The roar of howitzers once again shook the night sky. Volleys of rockets rained down on the swarm like falling stars. The bursts of thermobaric bombs overlapped one after another, illuminating the horizon with mushroom clouds. In the air, squadrons of unmanned bombers swooped by at low altitude. Powerful bombs were dropped with precision, forming a line of destruction. The fiery glow lit up the sky as if the entire world was ablaze. The swarm surged forward in waves, only to be blown to bits in this hellish sea of fire. Flesh and blood turned to ash amidst the swirling smoke. A soldier, his face blackened by gunpowder and smoke, wiped the dust from his face and shouted at the top of his lungs, "We have enough ammo now! Unleash full firepower!" In the next second, the entire front line roared in unison. Fire and shells overwhelmed the sky, shaking the very foundations of the land. The earth was screaming. The air was trembling. This was the united roar of Great Xia, an echo born from the iron will of two worlds, using scorching fire and cold steel amidst this devastated land, to reclaim the border of hope for humanity. At the same time, in the rear hospitals, the lights were turned on bright, yet the air was thick with anxiety outside the operating rooms. Stretchers were constantly being rushed in, covered in blood-stained bandages and pieces of blackened, charred armor that spoke to the brutality of the front line. The hospital director stood at the end of the hallway, looking at the long rows of wounded soldiers on temporary beds, his brow furrowed with deep worry. These men are all heroes, but even heroes need someone to save them, and yet, our medicine and supplies are almost completely gone. The head of the department hurried over, his voice full of urgency. "Director, the hemostatic agents and the antibiotics are all gone. If this continues, many of the critically wounded won't make it through the night. Then go to the other hospitals. Even if you have to beg or steal, get those meds back here." The department head gave a bitter smile and shook his head. "I've already called several places. The situation is the same everywhere. They're all out." The director leaned helplessly against the wall, muttering softly to himself. "Is even our medical team destined to wither away in this racial catastrophe?" The air grew stagnant. Only the beeping of machines echoed through the hallway. Just then, the roar of truck engines suddenly rang out from outside. Tears of relief began to stream down. "Thank goodness, they're saved. Our heroes are finally saved." Instantly, the entire hospital seemed to explode with energy. Nurses rushed by pushing carts full of medicine. Doctors regained their spirit. The soldiers, who were barely hanging on in their wards, heard those familiar sounds once again. "Start the IV. Increase the oxygen concentration by 3 units. Don't be afraid, brother. We have medicine now. You're going to live." That night, the lights in the operating rooms burned bright without rest. From the smoke-filled front lines to the depths of the hospitals, hope had been rekindled once more. Meanwhile, in the great sea of the real world, ever since the evolution process of the space gate was activated, the pace of this world had quietly accelerated. A massive number of troops and armored units had entered. In just half a month, the swarm had been utterly crushed and scattered. Even the swarm queen had to wave the white flag, offering an unconditional surrender. But those of a different race will always have different motives. The state ordered the total eradication of the swarm. Half a year later, the swarm was completely wiped out. Half a year later, the swarm was completely wiped out. In the other world, I was awarded the title of honorary doctor. Upon returning to Great Xia, I was also granted a doctorate degree. Countless people flocked to congratulate me. However, just a few days later, a countdown timer appeared before my eyes again. Instantly, I understood. A new journey is about to begin.